Broadcasting live from River City, from Atlantic City, the heart of America. This is Late Stage Internet. I'm your temporary guest host, Alex, and Chris, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Alex. I'm Chris, in case you didn't know by the introduction. I am your permanent temporary host, and yeah, let's hop right in.
Dude, did you see that Russia? I woke up this morning, immediately jumped on Twitter because I wanted to deplete my dopamine stores as quickly as possible. I saw that Russia had fired an ICBM loaded with apparently a blank at Kiev this morning, which is the first time anyone's ever fired an ICBM in like an actual conflict. So
what is
that was cool.
ICBM, intercontinental ballistic missile.
Yeah, it's like something that like theoretically could have delivered a nuke. But they didn't deliver a nuke. So that's good.
So it was just a warning shot.
Yeah, it was a warning shot, but like the most terrifying warning shot that like could have possibly been fired.
Yeah, it's like seeing the countdown in the sky, but then it's just like it ends with like the troll face.
Yeah, exactly. And then you wake up 4 hours later and you read about it on the greatest website in the world, x.com, the everything website.
Yes, where you get all the news. Yeah, that's pretty cool. I would say that's a little scarier than the Hawaii incident from whenever that was.
Was that North Korea firing shit at Hawaii or something?
So which makes it probably a little bit less plausible, but I mean, still, if I was living in Hawaii and my phone said that nukes are coming, I would piss my pants a little bit.
Do you ever find it difficult? What is your position on the conflict in Ukraine?
My position, which is a terrible position to have as an aspiring podcast host, is that I don't know enough to have a position.
That's awful. You have to take a position. No, this is like we're playing games with people's lives right now. I want to make you have a position, but I also don't.
I mean, I know where the people I agree with tend to land.
Which is?
Actually, I'm not sure I do. I know where like liberal Democrats tend to land. I don't really know what this sort of socialist left perspective is on Ukraine, Russia. There are some like horseshoe theory people like saying like, go Putin, go, let's take over the world and I'll just become like Russia. That might not be exactly what Jackson Hinkle is saying, but it's something, you know.
Well, he's definitely a fan of Putin. In some respects.
I know that there's some big fans of Putin, but I don't think that's. I mean, the type of people whose opinions we would respect aren't like rooting for Russia, right? That's not.
Well, maybe the people whose opinions you respect, but don't speak for me. No, I can't say I'm rooting for Russia by any means. I think the notion of like the West wants to accelerate this war or at least keep arming Ukraine. Despite the fact that it's like going to cause continuous escalation is like, I mean, that is probably literally true, but also if you're NATO in the United States, not arming Ukraine is like a really bad strategic move insofar as like you've effectively just ceded the territory, right? So
yeah, I mean, what about the Ukrainian people? I understand it from a sort of philosophical perspective, but what happens to them if we just backed out?
Well, I mean, so now it's like, now you get into the culpability of like, well, if we keep arming them, like, are we culpable for keeping this thing going? Like you hear things where it's like, if it weren't for NATO intervention, like this whole thing would have been over in between 5 days and a month, depending on how hard the speaker wants to glaze the Russian military. But on the other hand, it's not like we started the invasion, but you could argue that NATO / the US, whether or not you want to consider NATO as just anyway, you can argue that like the Western powers like pressured Russia into having to make this move. I don't know how much I buy that, but yeah.
Yeah. I need to do some serious reading on
this was a terrible
Ukraine, Russia, because I don't
first topic.
Yeah.
Maybe we should just
Maybe we
cut
can
this.
move
Maybe we
on.
should just cut this and start again.
Cut the.
None
Well,
of
no,
this
we
ever-
had some good back and forth. We can cut out the Ukraine Russia bit. It only lasted like 2 minutes. Don't worry about it.
Okay. We'll fix it in post.
All I know is that the moment that Jackson Hinkle got too boring for me to hate watch was when he started talking about Ukraine Russia nonstop. I just couldn't will myself to care.
It is kind of an important conflict to be discussing.
Oh, I believe it. But there's a lot of important conflicts, and that one just doesn't have the weight. So I am one of the people who, like, if you told me about it, like, you could convince me very quickly and very easily that it's very important, but it just doesn't have the natural. There's a bajillion and one things to read about online and to keep up with, and that one doesn't pull me in the way a lot of other things do. Even with I'm just not a foreign. I'm like my appreciation for how important thinking about politics on a global scale and getting out of just sort of like internal United States Dem versus Republican debates all day long and that be the only thing I'm engaging in. Like, I understand that that's important and that is growing on me, but in my political lifetime, like foreign policy, I always just, or not even necessarily policy, but just foreign political news, like it was an auto skip for me, just always was. So I don't know anything about Palestine either. I mean, I know what people say about it, but I haven't read anything about it. I just don't know.
Maybe that's our future. Maybe we just have to do like a deep dive on one thing, like week to week. That's what this podcast is going to actually
we just
be
turn
about.
into the socialist version of Destiny. Just deep dive.
Just deep dive into
we can read the Wikipedia and interpret it our own way.
Have Adderall fueled binges into Wikipedia.
No, I mean I'm very interested in learning about a lot of this stuff, but I'm not going to talk about it if I know nothing. I'll joke about it for sure, but I'm not going to give a serious opinion. I literally couldn't tell you anything about the history of like Palestine or Ukraine. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, not the topic for right now.
Well, that's it, folks. let's wrap up the podcast. Maybe that's all we have to say today.
No, yeah. Hey, I think we should normalize people saying they don't know what they're talking about. That's my hot take.
That would be good. Yeah, I think everyone has an opinion on everything.
Yeah, I've got strong opinions on a lot of things that I do know what I'm talking about. But anyway, sorry, finish your point. I interrupted.
No. I don't know what my point was. Some incoherent nonsense, probably.
Oh, never.
No way.
Never. All right. Well, let's stop dwindling around. Let's hop into.
Yeah, let's get back on track.
Wokeism, baby. Tell me about it.
Wokeism. I keep going back and forth on this, on how much because after the election and reading exit polls and being, I'll say, like, economically inclined, my first reaction is like, okay, this is a reaction to deteriorating material conditions for the working class and a lack of stability for the middle class. Basically, the floor fell out, and it's because of inflation. And you can see this pattern all over the world where it's like every incumbent party like got ousted because of cost pressure on cost of living, which is a pretty neat story. And so then kind of the policy prescription becomes for the Dems or really any kind of like leftist party is just like, we need some kind of a new deal with the American people. And sort of just to restate all of Bernie's points, we have to acknowledge that, like, yeah, the Biden administration did some good things, but like ultimately it wasn't sufficient. And we have to keep going and address that. That was the story that, I was sort of content to tell myself. But the more centrist and right-wing media I look at, the story that they're running with seems to be mostly around like, this is an election around like wokeism, and what I dismissed last week as cultural signifiers is like, no, this is like a genuine problem. Now, what exactly like woke means or wokeism means. It's very hard to define, but it's very easy to gesture at, I think. Like I think I kind of even I'm not am I woke? Who knows? But I'm a relatively woke person, and even I think can point it out. Um, but yeah, like, is this a problem? Like, does there need to be sort of like a targeted removal of these elements within, well, definitely the Democrats, but like leftist politics in general? What do you think?
I think that there's many layers to it. Um, I do think that there is most elections, at least in our lifetimes, so are, and I think this is probably true for most of history, are the policy is sort of like the undercurrent of like the cultural moment and the cultural phenomenon, and they sort of like interweave, but a lot of times, like, at the end of the day, like, Trump's persona and his uh ability to convince people that he's very anti this system and Mr. Drain the Swamp, and that he's an outsider and he's a business guy and he's here to fight back against the people policing how you talk and telling you like what it is that you're like, you being a Christian is bad, and telling you that your traditional values are bad. Like he's the one to like it is a cultural and a much more sort of conversation about how we should be living our lives and like what are the values of American families and like how we interact with each other and that sort of thing. And then policy gets wrapped up underneath it. I think that most of the time that is the case. And even I would argue with Bernie in 2016 and again in 2020, the amongst Bernie supporters, I do think it's fair to say that the diehard Bernie supporters, compared to other supporters of political candidates running for president of the United States in recent memory, were much more in the know of policy positions. But even Bernie, I would say, the excitement was wrapped around just a feeling of change in cultural moment. Like
Yeah.
it is a it is
And
it might be a
dissatisfaction and yeah, like
yeah.
excitement with like getting money out of politics, and sort of like
Yes.
a hope that like this could be something that's um more genuinely democratic, I think.
Yeah. And I think the image that even for some reason I have in my head, because I think it's so many socialists slash leftists on the internet like to talk about it. And it's a weird image to have because the 1950s were in like far from the ideal vision of what American life should be like. And there
Mhm.
was a lot of, I mean, a lot of what worked so well was the continued just like pretty intense systemic racism. There was some pretty significant, like, my understanding is that there was a lot of FDR and the like. There was a lot of like handshake deals that were just like, all right, we're going to raise taxes, but, you know, banks can still redline and all that stuff. Anyways, there were problems under the hood, and 1950s America wasn't like perfect by any stretch. But the image I have in my head of just like happy family where one parent is working, there's a couple of kids going to school, a couple times a year they go on a vacation to like a city across the country, and they like own a car and they're like hosting barbecues in their backyard with their neighbors, and like people just relatively stress free, like relatively, of course. They're not the paycheck to paycheck living isn't so common that people are constantly at war with each other or talking about money or the stress of having to pay for this, that, the other thing. Like people are talking about the sports game that happened last night or whatever's going on in the, you know, the latest movie that came out, whatever it is. That idea I have in my head was wrapped up in the Bernie run. I think the sort of like return to a
Yeah,
more
it's like
fair,
blue MAGA,
yeah,
basically.
yeah, in a way, and it's
Or like
yeah, so,
like without the sexism and the racism. But the
yeah.
idea of yeah, some kind of post-political or non-political society where, you know, a single individual can earn a living for an entire household, something like that. Yeah.
But what was one of the most common criticisms of Bernie amongst, so a bunch of like CNN, MSNBC liberal types as needing something to attack him with reached to, oh, he gives off real like misogynist vibes. Like they reached for some of that crap. But there was there was also a genuine concern, and that you and I are both familiar with, that just is like a virus amongst, I don't know if I want to use the word virus, but it is a big problem amongst socialist circles, is like, are we working class primarily focused versus like, are we then disregarding like other forms of oppression and hierarchies and that kind of thing? So there was some legitimate, and I think there was legitimate concern with Bernie that he wasn't talking about things other than just class enough. And that, I think that's a genuine conversation to be had. But that being said, what he gives off in a way, Bernie was certainly not like running on like a racist or misogynist platform, anti-trans platform, anti-gay platform, anything like that. He was, I think you and I would both agree, he's probably like a pretty humble, nice guy who like doesn't have bigotry in his heart. Like that's not who Bernie is, but he's not like up there running on, he's not running on a woke, quote unquote, woke performative thing either. And so this is one of the things that I think is a problem with politics right now, is that Dems, because of how far right they've pivoted in many ways and how much money they've taken, like a kind of, at this point, a lot of what they have to run on culturally is the social stuff.
Yeah.
And that's where they do performative wokeism. So we are so trained to hear from anyone who's left leaning, like woke talk, and interpret it as just like, oh, this is just your way of trying to sound holier than thou and get some votes and round up minority votes and get them to vote for you and trick them into voting for you. So anyways, I think my takeaway is that I don't think wokeism in and of itself is a problem in terms of talking about oppression in all its different forms. But I think recognizing that the way it lands with most people is in a way that they feel as if it's being weaponized against them. And people are being made to feel vilified, and white people are being made to feel vilified. And at this point, I think it's fair to say that other minority groups, other oppressed groups are at this point feeling like they're being used as props to get votes. And so the feeling is that an outsider like Trump might come around and make things better for everyone in some sort of, taking on the system type way, and that'll sort of trickle its way down to everybody. But I don't think that there is inherently, if someone is genuine about it, I don't think that there's anything that actually gets in the way from someone who's a really effective communicator and talking about working class issues combined with other forms of oppression. Like, I really just don't think they have to be opposed. You just have to be really genuine about your working class focus. That's my take.
Yeah, I agree. And even backtracking to Bernie in 2016 and 2020, I think that the smears that he was either misogynist or racist or very disingenuous, and I don't think are really function as genuine critiques, unless someone can point me to something that I've been missing, and seem much more like an attempted sort of media slander campaign against him than anything serious. And I think his position there was like, okay, by centering class issues again, which have been sort of like out of the popular consciousness, this does two things, which is one, it recenters the conversation on it, and two, minority groups are disproportionately, take your pick of minority, basically anyone who's not like a white guy, are disproportionately like economically disadvantaged. And so it's kind of like it's the real version of a rising tide lifts all boats. And so by refocusing the conversation, like you can get to a point that actually like is genuinely materially helpful to Black people, to brown people, to women, to trans people, like et cetera, through class messaging. So I think there's a difference between class reductionism and class forwardness. And I don't know that Bernie was a class reductionist. I think very few people actually are class reductionists outside of like orthodox Marxists who are kind of like really only people that you meet in like leftist reading groups. It's like a very rare position in sort of normal politics.
Mm-hmm. That would be the kind of position which states like everything at the end falls back to class. Like there's no topic which doesn't it.
Yeah. It's like the entire base of like material production is like racism isn't real. It's only it's and the only way you get here, by the way, is you kind of like ignore every post-Marxist theorist that used that took inspiration from Marx, and you do some kind of bizarre like hyper literal reading of like Marx's and maybe Lenin's texts, and you're like, well, actually, like misogyny is like a bourgeois construct, which you could the most charitable version of that argument I could make is that like misogyny is the current instantiation of misogyny is like an outgrowth of bourgeois culture, because everything is an outgrowth of like bourgeois culture. But that doesn't really get you anywhere other than basically like saying that like we live in a society with a Marxist inflection. So I think that like, yeah, okay, like, yeah, current misogyny is born out of bourgeois, which I'm not even sure is true. I think there's a material basis to being like fuck women insofar as it enables social reproduction without actually having to valorize it. Or in other words, you can make women like work in the house and you don't have to pay them, or it's not seen as societally valuable as, working in the mines or going into the office, which is ridiculous. I mean, if people didn't do housework and raise kids, like we'd be cooked. So,
yeah. And there has to be the drive towards, I do believe that there is something in us that, given the right circumstances, there is this drive towards acquiring social power over other human beings. And it's hard, like the things which we might argue are significantly amplified by capitalism. It's hard for me to argue that they're born from, that they can't exist separately from. Like that just seems like a disingenuous argument to me, that none of this stuff could exist outside of capitalism, and that it's like it's born from it. It also just ignores history, and I don't know. Maybe I'm open to being challenged on that point, but
I think probably the better version of that argument is, because like, I mean, to some extent, like you're right, there's probably some neural circuitry in there that's like that when the right chain of neurons is fired off, like biases people towards like in-group out-group preferencing, or rather in-group preferencing, right? But I think the argument is the tension between liberal, by which I mean small l liberal, ideas of like, liberty, equality, fraternity, and a system that reduces in such a way that it's like it's still sort of firing up that circuitry when it supposes that like that we could live in a world beyond that. And so kind of like capitalism and the liberal social order kind of contains the seed of its own destruction, because like you're constantly kind of like, especially if you're like materially disadvantaged, right? You're in this fight or flight mode, and yeah, like some nastier aspects of potentially human biology might come out. But at the same time, like the idea of like free markets and markets can work and allocate goods optimally, like is kind of premised around the idea of a bunch of like equal rational actors. And so there's that kind of like, there's the internal tension there. And that's the problem. So it's not unique to capitalism. I mean, obviously, like it didn't look the same, but like there was racial prejudice before capitalism. It wasn't the same as kind of the mass scale imperialism in the post-capital age, but it did exist. There was sort of like misogyny, although maybe you don't call it that, before capitalism. Yeah, these things existed before, and we can imagine alternative political and economic forms where they still exist. But the key is the tension, where it's like we can imagine a world beyond this, but we're stuck in it because of how we make stuff, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yes, there is a forced tension that it exists. It necessarily exists on a systemic level.
Yeah.
In a capitalist society. Yeah, as opposed to, I mean, when I imagine my utopian socialist future in my head, I don't imagine a world without individual bad actors. But that's a fundamentally different problem.
Yeah, I mean, sure. Yeah. I mean, there may still be individual, but that's, yeah, again, it's a different issue, right?
That's a very different, that's a different problem. And that's a different, that then getting a little bit into talking about things that it's hard to give specifics about because it's so far from reality. But you imagine a world where the problem is something more along the lines of maybe what Rachel Maddow might have you believe, that the problem is just a bunch of individual racists. Then the argument of something along the lines of just like, well, go live somewhere and surround yourself with people who aren't bigots, like becomes more applicable. Like just choose the people you surround yourself with better. And
just an individual
try
people.
You can't escape it. There's no escape.
You can't escape it. There is no escape. You can't go out, and you can't go back either.
No.
You can't go back to pre-agrarian. Dude, why is my nose so fucking red? This is awful. It is really hot in here.
A little red. You want to take off your sweater?
No, I don't. I want to keep it on.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, the other, if you need to adjust the temperature, that's fine. But
I actually, fun fact, I literally can't. I live on the second floor, and then if we turn it down, then the person in the garden unit will get too cold. So I just have to I guess I adjust the temperature just by opening more windows in here. But then it'll get too cold, and that'll be a problem. So it's the eternal. This is the dialectic of me managing the temperature in my office, and I need to subvert this by blowing the roof off or something, and I don't know, returning to monkey.
I really struggle with this in the car, particularly even in the summer when it's really hot. AC, after it's been running for like 5 minutes, is, well, not so much when it's really hot in the summer, but like when it's like spring or fall, when it's like pretty warm and I need a little bit of AC, after like 5 minutes, it's too cold to be comfortable.
No, you want it to be too cold to be comfortable. In fact,
absolutely.
I said that. I need to open a window.
Go open a window. Can you still? Well, no, you can't talk back to me. But anyways, the other point I had wanted to make on this topic was that, and I need your help here actually. But what is the line from Marx that everyone quotes where he says something along the lines of like the world's history is a history of class struggle? What is that line exactly?
Oh fuck, I'm not going to be able to get it verbatim.
But you know what I'm talking about, right? Yeah.
All of history hitherto has been the fuck.
Yeah. There's definitely a hitherto in there. But my take on this, and I don't know if others have said this, but is that, like if I were to say, I don't think it would be that inaccurate of a statement to say like the world's history is a history of like misogyny. Like it is just like the nature of male to female relationship and the way misogyny has existed for at least thousands of years has influenced society in great ways. And it really is like a huge point that if you were to ignore it in trying to understand the world's history, it would be like fundamentally missing kind of everything.
Yeah, that's
But
probably
that
true.
doesn't like, and I think I could say that, but it's still not saying that, it's not saying that other forms of oppression or hierarchies aren't like crucial to understanding the world's history either. So I don't know. I find the debate to be a little, and I always like try and remind myself like I am a straight white man who doesn't experience these things, but I do find it at times to be a little bit like getting lost in the weeds. And like I keep coming back to just like this is my frustration is that like when the Amazon warehouse worker hears us debating this kind of thing, like this is the quickest way to get them to stop listening to
Yeah,
us.
and I mean, I guess this is like what people are fed up with wokeism. So basically, we are the problem. It's
Yeah.
you and I. And we should just stop talking forever. And I think that's how we can fix this.
I think we should try and get more people in like the Amazon warehouse worker like genre of job on podcasts. That's
Yeah, maybe
part of
you're
my
right,
take
dude.
too.
We need to talk to like more normal people.
Yeah, get some normal
that's the
people
actual
on
solution.
these socialist podcasts and say like, hey, like, what do you want? Like, we want like to raise the minimum wage. We want to like increase the strength of unions. Like we want you to have like more PTO and like more workers' power. Like we care about all those things. I know you might have a view of us as being like this, that, and the other thing, but like ask them questions like what could we say that would actually get you to maybe start to listen to us and that sort of thing. And ask them what they need from us.
Maybe. I mean, I think that would be interesting. I'll talk to anyone.
I think it'd be interesting.
Basically,
Yeah.
I'll talk to basically anyone. Basically anyone. Really, some people I wouldn't be all that interested in talking to, but by and large, yeah. I mean, I don't know. Maybe we need to. This is some real Maoist praxis. We need to go into the masses and learn from them so we can better develop our better educate ourselves as the vanguard, right? Fuck, did I lose you? Rip. Check. Hello, am I back?
No, what happened? Did anything happen on your end?
Yeah, you just froze.
Okay, my computer almost died, but I plugged in.
Let's go.
We're good. Actually, that story is so boring. Never mind. So, anyways, just continue.
Oh, I don't know. I was saying this would be some real Maoist praxis if we can just get normal people on and talk to them.
I mean, I do think in some way or form, like one of the things that is going on right now, and I think it was brought up in the, how do you say his name? Citarella?
Yeah.
Josh Citarella interview that you sent me. When he was talking about the idea of like increased engagement with political ideas, but decreased engagement with like political activity.
Yes. Yeah.
That inevitably like the gap between working class people and like thinkers and like organizers, like there's going to just be an increased gap. So I think that finding ways to bridge that is probably important. If nothing else, to have a shot at getting their vote even to like vote blue, like to start the conversation.
Yeah, because God knows neither you nor I can actually go into politics. But yeah, I mean, like we've become a bunch of freaks, right? Really sort of untethered from, and by we all, I mean like you and I, and the the podcaster class, which is something, which is a development that Marx never saw coming, but is posed to destroy liberalism forever, and not in a sublative way, but just in a we're just gonna backslide. You could really even argue that that podcasters have caused the war in Ukraine, which, going back to that, he's probably going to cause World War III, and so to some extent, like, podcasting ultimately ended the human race in an act of pure narcissism. Just dudes loving to hear themselves talk, and that's what did us all in. I mean, in the end, really.
Late stage black pilled podcast, more like
late stage black. No, I'm not being serious, or am I?
Or is he?
No.
that's always the joke.
That's always the
funny.
Yeah. It's the
I'm not being serious, but wink,
post irony. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're so cooked.
Yeah. The way to make it in the podcast game is to just move up a level of D chess. So at this point, we got to make it to like 17 D chess. Like that's where we get in. We play the people who are playing the people who are playing.
I don't even know what that looks like. I was going to try to get someone on this podcast who left the internet, who was playing like 16D chess. And I was going to like have them springboard us to playing 17D chess, but it didn't work out.
They left the internet?
Yeah, they left the internet.
Like stopped consuming internet content?
Well, they were being too edgy online, and I think they were like a college student, and they abruptly deleted all of their social media.
That's pretty big.
Because according to some allegations, their parents were like, "You got to stop this shit, or we're cutting you off financially."
How did their parents know?
Dude, I don't know. I mean, it was becoming a thing. It was like, it was a problem.
Was the personality coming home?
The personality may have been coming home. The chickens may have been coming home to roost. That's one of those phrases that I need to start saying more often.
It's a very funny phrase.
Like boomer phrases, like chickens coming home to roost, fly in the ointment. What are some other ones?
You can't have your cake eat it too.
Nah, that one's played out. I feel like everyone says that all the time.
No? Okay.
It's too much.
I'm just thinking of ones my mom says. She says that one all the time. Not a saying, but a question that I've only heard from people who are over the age of 55 is instead of saying "what's going on," they'll say "what's the scuttlebutt."
That's not real. That's some fucking New Hampshire, Vermont shit, dude. People in real states don't say what's the scuttle. What's a scuttle? What does that even mean? What is the etymology of
give a Google to scuttlebutt. I and my siblings and friends also refused to believe that was a real word, and then we gave it a Google.
Apparently, it's a slang term for gossip or rumor. I don't buy it. That's fake. Anyways. That's not real.
Yeah. Well, anyways. I like chickens coming home to roost. That's a good one.
Chickens are coming home to roost. So apparently you're becoming religious now. Am I reading that right?
No. I'm just...
Are you sure? You're not hiding your power level?
I wouldn't describe myself as becoming religious. Here's where I'm at. I am, and this is also actually, I think I'm taking this a little bit from recency bias will always win my brain over, but the Joshua Citarella interview you sent me on Navarro is the most recent thing I've consumed, so it's on my brain. But the part where they're talking about nihilism, and how to combat nihilism. And one of them, I don't remember who, the host or Josh, makes a point about like sort of the appeal to religion being like one of the, if not the only irrational. It's like, it's appealing because it's irrational. And like when you can't find a rational answer to like nihilism, like you got to just like try and find something. And that's where I'm at with it. Where like, I'm not of this opinion that like, if we could make co-opt religion to make it like a leftist project or like make more people religious again, that like it would fix a lot of our social problems. I'm not like in like a Christianity will make a comeback and save the world or anything like that. But I
Based
am at a
socialist Jesus. Yeah. Will
yeah,
do.
I am at a place of sort of struggling with nihilism where like I don't really care if it makes any sense or not. If there's a community aspect of going to church on Sundays, then I'm down to clown.
I kind of agree with that. I've played with the idea of going to like socially liberal. I mean, I grew up at a socially liberal church, but I've played around with the idea of just like going to socially liberal churches on Sunday just for some kind of a sense of community. But I haven't actually done it, so like I don't know how genuine are my commitments really. Yeah, I mean, I think it can definitely be a positive. I mean, one thing that when I had that vegetable delivery job, my senior year of college, we would just cruise around Ohio and unload boxes full of vegetables at like 7 a.m. I was getting up at like 4:30. But like one of the things that struck me was like we were always delivering to churches, and we weren't always delivering to churches because like churches are so based. It was like a because we were based Christian warriors, Deus Vult. Here's your eggplants. No, it was it was because it's like that. It is the literal, even almost like physical center of the community, where it's like the church is also like outside of and I'm talking, these are really small. This is like Amish country. We weren't delivering to the Amish, but like Amish country, like really small communities. And it's like, yeah, the church is the center of them. And I think there's a pretty large part of rural America where like that is very much the case. Yeah. Even like, even when I grew up in the Boy Scouts, like I grew up in a reasonably sized town of like I think like 15,000 people, and like the Boy Scout we met in like a church basement, because it was space that's available and it's centrally located. So yeah, I mean like even just from the legacy of religion, like you can't ignore it. I don't think you can entirely ignore it. And frankly, I don't even think it's all that. I don't even think it's all bad. But
No.
you know,
I don't either. I think that if there were more places to talk about, I think it is the one place remaining in today's world where, not obviously at the level that you and me and other nerds spend our time consuming broader philosophical-esque content on the internet, but it is like the remaining place where conversations about living a good life and like what does it mean to confront death and like what is the importance of family, like we kind of like some of those things get talked about in a way that I think if AI comes and like saves the world, right, and we've all got a boatload of free time and all of a sudden there's like all sorts of public places of gathering for all sorts of different fun activities, I don't think I would need to necessarily go to like a church to have that need in me fulfilled.
No, yeah, no, definitely not. I mean, if you do, yeah, like if you don't live in a city, outside of, I guess, like paying to do a master's program or getting into a PhD, like, yeah, that's probably true. Like, it's not like people are just floating around and, willing to talk about what it all means. Maybe some are. I don't know. Maybe I'm underestimating people. I'm underestimating the loneliness. Though I keep trying this at Run Club and it doesn't really ever stick the landing. So like, I don't know. You tell me.
Yeah, I think a large part of it though is people have to be. A lot of people really have walled themselves off from asking these types of questions like on a daily basis, the way you and I maybe do, and there's something about like, right, like when as an adult, and you're struggling through the workday and you just want to be entertained and watch your sports game and this and the other thing, like there is something about Sunday morning when you wake up, you got a fresh cup of coffee and you to like calm the nerves a little bit. Maybe that's just me. but and then you're surrounded with a group of people and you're like doing the like hymn music and the organ and you're all dressed up a little bit and listening to a pastor like break the silence, sort of like break the ice and talk about this, where all of a sudden people are a little bit more emotionally available to like have that type of conversation in a way that I think like after work at Run Club, maybe they just want to talk about like movies or music,
sports, dude.
Or
which I don't follow any sports, so I'm just cooked. Yeah, I mean, like, people clown on the TradCath movement coming out of like Dimes Square in like 2022, which is funny how quickly this like all feels quaint. But like, peak Red Scare, like 2021, 2022, like people roughly our age or a little younger, just like going to church and being like ironic, but also deeply serious about it, deeply seriously ironic about going to church. And on one hand, it's like it's a rebellious thing to do, to get away from cringe Reddit atheism, which we all know is awful. But also like, yeah, I mean, I think there is a genuine like thirst for community, and dare I say a genuine thirst for organ music. You don't hear a lot of that anymore outside of baseball stadiums.
Yeah, but that's not the good stuff though.
No, that's not the good stuff, dude. They're withholding it from us.
Yeah, that's some
Maybe
basic.
what we crave. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of the harmony and "Take Me Out to the Ball Game." Doesn't exactly get the juices flowing the way some of those hymns do. There's some hymns. Well, okay, I'm not going to go down that.
No, hymns suck ass, dude. I grew up singing hymns. Fuck hymns.
But the
I don't know
writing, the 4-part harmony, it's beautiful.
Oh, all right. Shut up, nerd. I'm going to shove you in a locker. I'm going to shove you in an organ or perhaps a tuba.
The reason I like it and appreciate it so much is because it is the best way to study harmony and 4-part writing for any music theory nerds out there. I won't say anything more. I won't bore anybody else, but hymns are phenomenal for studying if you're a music theory geek. So that's why I've got some respect for hymns. And I don't know. I mean, you get a choir of people singing. It gets me going a little bit.
Dude, Jesus knew what he was doing when he wrote all those.
Yes, he did.
I'm so glad. He's so glad.
To do that in 33 years.
Pretty
thousands
impressive.
Of hymns. Yeah.
Master of music theory and also a Jewish scholar as well.
What a guy.
Great guy. Gotta love him.
Yeah. I was, to use a cringe phrase, that this is a young people phrase, right? To say I was today years old when.
No, dude, that's like Reddit in the 2010s, I feel like. I would know because.
But my point is that this is not a boomer thing.
No, it's not. I don't know. It's not a boom. It's an
internet thing.
That's a millennialism.
Okay, that's a millennialism. Are millennialisms the most cringe of all the isms?
Yes, millennialisms are the most cringe. Boomerisms are cool again. Like saying
They're
like
funny.
fly in the ointment. Yeah, this is like coming back to that. Boomerisms are cool. What comes after boomer would be Gen X. So like my parents, they don't really have any phrases. They don't really have all that much.
No,
they
were all hippies. Deadheads.
They weren't hippies. They were teenagers in like the 80s. So they grew up listening to like Metallica.
Yeah.
And like very early grunge, maybe when they were in college, depending on how old they are.
In my head, being in high school in the 60s is like the same as being in high school in the 80s. Like all of those people are grouped together, which I know obviously is not true. But I'm like, if they were born in, I don't know, pre-1990, I'm like, oh yeah, they were a deadhead.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Anything between, which obviously is not true.
Yeah, but
like,
deadheads
weren't.
Yeah. But I get
the way
what
my
you're
brain works.
saying.
It combines all of it together.
Blends in. It's all. Yeah. Yeah. I think there's a every decade has a turning of like a gritty to glitzy. Like 50s was like greasers, and then 60s was like, I don't know, fucking A-line skirts and the bright makeup and campy Batman, like the Beatles. kind of like a super technicolor kind of thing.
Psychedelic.
Yeah, psychedelic. And then the 70s is like it's gritty again.
Yeah.
You got Dirty Harry and all that shit. Like real sort of like counterculture movements in like a genuine way. The last breath of the American New Left, which is not so new anymore. And then the 80s happened, and it was Reagan, and it was fucking Grease, the movie, which is about 50s, the sort of idealized version of an era that was simultaneously can be read as glitzy and gritty. And then the 90s, and it's Nirvana, and it's gritty again. And then the aughts, and it's fucking Kesha, and what was the aughts? Like Maroon 5 and Scene Kids. And then the 10s happened, and it was fucking Occupy Wall Street. And now we're in the 20s, and it's hard to call it out.
I think I'm ready for the 2030s. I'm done for.
I'm ready for the 2030s. The 2030s are going to be big things are going to happen. But anyway, what was I saying? Okay, yeah. So going back, Gen X, not cringe. The last uncringe generation, I would say. The boomers suck, but they're not cringe.
No, they're pretty funny. It's hard not to find boomers funny.
Yeah.
But anyways, this all started with me saying I was today years old when, which I will stop saying. Today, something happened. I learned that Jesus died at 33.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, did you know that? I guess.
No, I didn't know that.
Why would you know that? Yeah.
Now, my question is, was this like whoever wrote the Bible being like, haha, like the Holy Trinity, like he had to be 33. Like that's good writing.
Dude, who knows? I mean, maybe not. I mean, biblical scholars know. Like, we could actually go look it up. I don't know off the top of my head. Let's actually Google this live on air. Can you vamp for me? Just say things. Just start talking.
Well, how much do we know about? Are we like significantly more confident that we know a lot more about Jesus than say like Shakespeare? Like, is Jesus really like we've got the good like biography of like when he was born, when he died, like actually what happened in his lifetime, or is he more mythical? Like, I'm kind of curious about that because it's fascinating to me that like certain people, like I guess what I'm curious about more than anything, and this is moving on from Jesus, but like how we know so little about Shakespeare. Like the way we talk about him as not being real, and like maybe he was 10 people, maybe he was one, maybe he was none. Like,
yeah, dude, hell? I don't.
Wasn't that
I know
long
even
ago.
less about
like, what are we doing?
Shakespeare than I do about Jesus. I mean, it was a pretty long time, and it's not like there's a ton of like
compared to Jesus,
floating
it's
around.
Not that long ago.
Yeah, I guess compared to Jesus, yeah, it's not that long ago. I mean, okay, according to Google, Jesus was probably between 33 and 39.
But 33 fits the.
But he was probably between 33 and 34 when he died. Yeah, approximately.
Okay. So if I'm Jesus, I've got 5 more years.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. What would you do if you had 5 years left to live? You knew you were going to die in 2029.
Good question. I would travel the world and I would try and beat fate. I'd try to figure out why I would die, and then I would
not do it.
And then I would not do that. Yeah, and then inevitably that would kill me because that's how every
story ever goes.
Yeah, that's how every story goes. Yeah. My attempt to. That's like what's going to happen to that Brian Johnson guy who's trying to like become a child. That's going to be my next
question was what you think about Brian Johnson.
He's definitely, I mean, it's this journey is going to kill him. And even if it doesn't, I'll figure out a way to like logically justify it to myself to say that it did.
I think the more I listen to him talk, I'm actually kind of intrigued. Like genuine, because I don't think he's promoting a grind set, like optimize yourself for the purpose of grinding. I don't think that's what drives him. I think he's just a genuinely like quasi insane, really curious person with a lot of money who's like just genuinely really curious about how to live the longest.
And I think he's really scared of death.
Yes.
Like,
But
really
I think
scared.
most
Yeah.
people are way more scared than they would admit.
Yeah, probably.
In fact, I
Not
think
me
it's like
though.
the
Not
number
me.
one driver of like human action is our fear of death.
Or fear of death. I mean, probably. Like, what else could it be? Fear
Yeah,
of
like
death,
why get
drive
out
to
of bed?
procreate. Neither of
Yeah.
which apply to me. I have no fear of death and no desire to genetically reproduce.
Mm.
I'm a dead end. That's
You
why I'm
could
special.
infiltrate the Nick Fuentes circles. You could be the you could really F them up being a celibate like socialist. Really mess
I
up
mean,
their
I'm not celibate. I just don't. I don't
no.
have a desire to have children. Um,
Just say you're celibate.
just say I'm celibate.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And then Nick
Actually, I don't know if
Fuentes
that's
could
very funny, but
take me on a
we might just
date
make Nick
like he
Fuentes a
did
little
that
uncomfy,
cat boy.
which ain't that
Make him
hard.
uncomfortable with his sexuality. I'm just kidding. I'm not attractive enough to do that. Fuck that guy though. Um,
You might be able to.
no, no.
I mean, how many one-on-one conversations do you think he has with other young men in a room alone? If you were like to
Dude,
do a
I bet
podcast like at his
I
house,
bet a lot. I bet a lot
okay,
via
but like ones that have
the
like
app
showered
grinder. The ones that have showered. Well, that's
in
definitely
the
going
past
to
like
lower the
day or
dating
two.
pool. I don't know, dude. That the whole groiper subculture just completely mystifies me. I know, like,
Well,
I know
do
there
you
are a
think
bunch of
Nick is
fuckheads.
having? Do you think Nick is like behind camera having gay sex?
I
And
wouldn't
is
put it past him. I wouldn't put it past him. I right now, gun to my head, I would say that he has had gay sex, but I don't think he has it regularly.
mm, maybe that moment where he was like, maybe Trump's kind of like a cult was like right after he like had some good sex.
Yeah, probably. I buy that. Yeah. Um, no, not that there's anything wrong with gay sex. I'm very pro gay sex and pro straight and pro all kinds of sex, but
Yeah,
I'm not pro going on camera and saying that, like, your body, my choice after the fucking uh after was that after Trump got elected, or was that as far back as Roe getting
it
repealed?
might be.
I don't remember.
I mean, the guy is
It doesn't
obviously
matter.
he is like the one of the more insecure people I've seen with a large
Dude,
platform.
he's so transparently insecure.
Yeah.
It's just awful, dude.
It's to the point where I don't even really find it funny when people dunk on him. Like he doesn't even have enough of a front. Like there isn't even enough. He hasn't even built up the ego to the point where you could believe that it's anything other than insecurity.
Yeah, yeah. It's almost like, to me there's so little to say about, well, that's probably not true. But there's so little to say about him specifically. Other than he's just like an awful guy and he's clearly very sexually repressed.
Yeah.
Um,
And socially repressed and
all
internet
kinds of
rotted
repressed.
and all sorts of problems. But like, have you followed the Jeff Nippard drama of the past month?
Yes, I
Not really
have.
drama,
Can we
but
come back to that? Can we come
Yeah.
back to that real quick? I think someone's breaking into my house and I need to go smoke a
Yeah.
cigarette. Yeah, I'm thinking I'm back. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
thinking I'm back. Oh man,
Mm.
dude, are
Is
you
that a-
are
How good of a
Go
litmus
ahead.
test is that for like you being like up there? Is it up there
Yeah.
or get like do you know do you understand the I'm thinking I'm back?
Yeah, I'm thinking
Like if someone understands that immediately, you know you're gonna connect, right?
Yeah, probably. I
Yeah.
was gonna call you stupid for saying this, but now that I think about it, I'm like, yeah, that's actually probably true.
Yeah.
God, I think I just have low standards. Speaking of low standards, are you a Zyn person?
I don't know what that is.
The fucking nicotine pouches that you stick in your lip.
Oh no.
How do you not know what Zins are?
I've never
What fucking planet do you live on, dude? Are you serious?
the only time I'm about to sound like such a loser, but I don't even know what the right word is. The only time I've ever done any sort of nicotine product was drunk cigs in college.
Well, that is the time to do it. But yeah, that's fair. This is not a good drug. Not good. Very bad.
very aware of how I struggle massively with caffeine. What am I going to do if I start doing nicotine? I'm screwed. I'm
Dude,
done.
You're going to be nicked up all the
Game
time.
over.
I mean, Tucker
Never
Carlson's a
sleeping
fan,
again.
and he has masculine vitality. Don't you want to be like Tucker?
You know, I'm going to keep it real for a second here. The answer has to be no, obviously. But I do think Tucker, on a day-to-day basis, is... do I believe this? I was about to say, I think on a day-to-day basis, I think he's probably feeling in a better mood than I am.
He probably is.
I think
but he's also rich and powerful and very handsome.
And did you know he grew up wealthy? I didn't know that.
Oh yeah, dude. He has that frozen food money.
Yeah.
The Swanson. I didn't know this because, not to flex my class privilege, but I didn't eat a lot of frozen food growing up. But the Swanson frozen foods
I don't
are
know
owned
that
by Tucker
either.
Carlson's family.
I don't know Swanson.
Okay. I don't know. Apparently,
I ate some frozen food. I will after I didn't mean to segue into a very dark and serious topic, but when you're young and there's 3 kids and one parent dies unexpectedly, the other one kind of needs to resort to some frozen meals.
Yeah, that's fair.
It has to happen. So anyways, I ate my fair share of frozen meals, but I don't know if I could name but as a family, like we had enough money where my mom was buying like the organic, like there's only 1 or 2 options because it's like healthy, probably actually like good for you. I mean, I don't know about good for you, but anyways, it's like real shit that's frozen. So I wasn't eating that like $3 like enough fried chicken to feed a like 3 kids pack of that comes in the big red bag or whatever it is.
Yeah, dude, these look delicious. You've got they've got the original TV dinner, which features.
No,
you've got. I'm going to describe this image to you.
It's basically like shitty Thanksgiving, right?
Yeah, it's like shitty Thanksgiving. The turkey looks like wood. Like it looks like a wood panel.
If I Google Swanson family dinner.
Yeah, just Google Swanson frozen dinners, and we'll be looking at the same thing. Oh, dude, they've got the.
No.
I love it when they have like a dessert in there. I think this is supposed to be like some kind of biscuit.
Yeah. Oh man. Remembering the TV dinner somewhat fondly. What a.
Dude, these look awful.
Veal Parmesan.
That is a more traditional than chicken parm. Fun fact. The real Italians.
I didn't know anyone other than what the heck's his name? Peter Attia? What? Is that right? That's wrong.
Peter Attia, Mr. Health.
Yeah, I didn't know anyone other than him ate veal.
Yeah, dude, veal's pretty good.
What is veal? Deer?
Am I stupid for not knowing? I've had a really long day and I can't remember what veal is. Yeah, I think veal is
is the meat of calves. Oh. It's just baby.
I guess I just confused that with venison.
That's what I confused it with too. Yes,
mixed up. Yeah,
veal's the meat from a calf or young. Oh man, I don't like that. I'm about to go on my vegan arc.
You can't be eating baby calves. Also, I may have been totally just speaking out of my depth about veal parmesan. Someone correct me about that. God,
doesn't sound good to me.
It sounds great to me. Oh, they do a Salisbury steak. Next week we should get Swanson frozen dinners and review them live on air.
I hate
can you imagine?
Steak. Do you remember the Salisbury steak in college?
No, I never ate that. I always thought it looked disgusting. I know Noah loved it. That's some real Midwest shit right there. That's how they make you a real growing boy.
Oh God, dude! I would rather eat what's the Cincinnati thing that everyone hates? The chili.
Skyline.
Skyline chili. I'd rather eat that than
Skyline.
Salisbury
I'm
steak.
pretty hungry right now, but Skyline is not bad. I don't know
I
if
don't
I'll go
I
to
don't
bat for
actually know
Skyline,
if I've
but
ever really had it. I think the one time I had it, my like grandpa made, but he grew up in New England and lived in Cincinnati for like a few years, so I don't really
Mhm.
like trust him to have done it perfect. Like I need to go to Cincinnati and like get it
Yeah. Well,
get
the
it there.
chili is very weird because it's really closer to kind of like a meat sauce, but it also has like I don't know if it has dark chocolate or cocoa and cinnamon in it, but it has like chocolate and
Oh.
cinnamon notes, um, which is
Ugh.
much better than it sounds.
Yeah, my
Unless
gut
you've ever
tells me
had
that's
Mexican
bad.
food, in which case it's probably about as good as it sounds because that's I don't know. What is that?
Is that common
God,
in
I feel
Mexican food?
there's the one fucking chicken that you can get in every like Mexican American restaurant. Um that
I
has
don't
like a
know.
spicy um cocoa drives. God, I'm such a fucking idiot, dude. I'm this is a rough night. Okay, it's been a long day for me. I've been having a very difficult time and my nose is turning red because I'm boiling hot in this small cramped room and I can't
And
remember
you're
what this fucking
overworked and
Mexican food is
underpaid.
good. I'm overpaid and somewhat I'm probably not overworked, but it is what it is.
Everyone's overworked.
No, not me. Couldn't be me. Um, well, this is good. We're talking about frozen dinners. I was coming in here ready to talk about the ontological threat of transgenderism and my idea as to why I thought
Yeah. No,
it's such a cultural flashpoint.
let's final serious topic. Let's go there. I am curious to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, so I think sometimes I have to like justify things to myself with like some kind of like, well, actually, the public doesn't like trans people because they collapse binary notions of being, I guess. And it's like, wait, you
Mhm.
were one thing, but you crossed into another. And so this was like an impermeable barrier. And then you get into non binary people, and it's like, well, is there something outside of like, um, this whole thing altogether? And so my how I sometimes justify this to myself, um, because I look at a lot of transphobic content on the internet, is like, well, ultimately, like people feel threatened by a sense of like epistemic breakdown, um, because these people challenge their conception of how the world works and how categories work. Um, and it's essentially like a white blood cell attacking like a disease, um, where it's like they start panicking about it and they don't know why. Um, and it probably doesn't help that I think there is, I don't know what the most polite way to say this is, but like non-passing trans people are obviously like visibly trans. And I think that that's weird for a lot of people. It's a visual transgression of,
Wait, say that again. Non-passing trans people
yeah, like
are
if you're like
visibly
a,
what?
if you're like male to female and you're either like in the process of transitioning or what, and it's like it's evident in some kind of a way that like you were assigned male at birth, then it's like a
So
visible.
non-passing references to the fact that people wouldn't, if someone was a trans female, but
Mhm.
you would be passing if most people who saw you on the street would just assume that you were assigned female at birth. Is that what that means?
Yeah,
So
that's what
non-passing is
passing
like
is. Yeah, yeah,
okay, got it,
yeah.
yep.
Or the terminally online term would be clocky, um, which is that
Mhm.
you can clock someone as being trans or not trans based on,
Okay.
um, yeah.
So what would a non-passing person be? A clocky?
Yeah, you would say in terminally online internet speak, you'd say they're a clocky trans person,
Clocky trans.
and
Okay.
you could clock them as non. I actually don't know what the etymology of that is. I'm so terminally on. I grew up on not that I'm, but I grew up on 4chan, and there's just, some boards where this kind of thing is thrown around, and it's literally, it's been a part of my lexicon since I was like 14, because my brain is just completely cooked, and I never thought to look this up.
Yeah. Well,
But yeah, anyway, so
let it be.
what were you saying? Yeah, so the kind of the visible transgression of boundaries is like,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can say in a very simple sense, like, well, people don't like them because they're ugly.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also
Mhm.
like, there are fucking ugly ton of ugly dudes. I guess ugly women get a lot of shit online. So like, maybe it's just misogyny all the way down, all the way down.
No,
You remember?
I don't think it's just that simple.
I
mean, I think that there's elements of that, and I also think that there's
yeah.
elements of people hating ugly people. I mean, obese people, not to the same extent that trans people get hate, but obese people get a lot of public judgment and shame.
Well, RFK Jr. is going to make America healthy again. We're going to fix this by swapping out the fucking oil in McDonald's or something. Yeah. So 2028, there's not going to be any fat people or trans people.
Yeah, it turns out it was the oils causing the trans.
It was the oils the whole time that made us all trans.
Yeah.
Turns out microplastics actually are making us gay, though. So I don't know. Maybe Alex Jones is right about this too.
Yeah, maybe. But what is the, in your head, what is the trans question? Like, what are you concerned about? And in your notes for the show, you wrote an epistemic threat. Like, a threat to what?
I think it's a threat to most people's understanding of the world. That's what I meant when I said that. And so that's kind of like my theory of transphobia. Mm-hmm. Not my theory. I don't know. This is like some kind of theory of transphobia ultimately comes from, is like, it's an epistemic threat.
Yeah.
I don't know that you have to go there in order to have a convincing assessment as to like what's really going on, though. Even if, yeah, on some level, like, that's probably true, but the trans question, or rather questions, I mean, there's a few things for me in particular. I'm just very interested in this, which is, one is that in a lot of leftist spaces, particularly in like the ACP, notable fledgling communist party, maybe they're not fledgling, I don't know. Anyway, but some would say that they have like transphobic elements, and then there's like like, ultimately, if you want to appeal to MAGA people, you need to get away from kind of like all this woke shit. And so I think the party's official stance is like, just don't talk about it. It's not terribly important. Which rubs a lot of people, specifically like on Twitter, like the wrong way.
Yeah.
Insofar, and also it doesn't help that like some people affiliated with the ACP just do straight up say like transphobic things. And I think that the defense there, which you can quibble about the validity of this, is like, well, if you're trying to appeal to MAGA people, like, really all this is like top of funnel marketing, just like essentially like shock jockeying, where it's like, are they actually transphobic? Who knows? But this is a good way to get people down the pipeline. And my sort of gut reaction there is like, if you have to use like transphobic sentiment, this would be like getting I mean, it's not exactly the same, but it's comparable. Like, well, if we can just use racism to start people down the path to leftism.
Yeah, you end up at Jackson Hinkle.
Yeah. Well,
I mean that's kind of you end up in a very authoritarian fascist.
I mean, Jackson Hinkle, I think, has modified his rhetoric considerably.
I haven't followed him in a couple of years. I don't know where he's at.
Well, I mean, yeah, he is explicitly like affiliated with the American Communist Party, and I think he's he's a chairman. I don't quote me on that. But yeah, ultimately, like, if this strategy works, actually, no. You know what? I'm going to steel man myself on the racism point. if racism is an outgrowth of like capitalism and colonialism and imperialism, basically like racism exists because of concrete material forces and continues to exist because it's ideologically necessary to perpetuate some kind of like social reproduction in America and the Western world at large. Okay, so like racism has a material basis in production.
Yeah.
I think that much is clear. Are you following me? Does this make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then the transphobia thing is essentially, or the trans thing is really just an outgrowth of like sort of postmodernism, like run amok. Right, where it's just like we're destroying categories. It has no basis in material anything, and also, so basically, it's like it's a bourgeois ideology carried on by a bunch of, you know, labor aristocrat white people who are just perverted, and this is kind of like.
But all the things you said about racism, I think have to be said about gender.
No, I mean, I don't about gender. Yes, about like, but in terms of like men and women, but not in terms of like, well, you can be born a man and then become a woman or something like that.
Well, sure, but or
rather, they can be said about sex. But gender is essentially like a construct that we came up with.
Okay, yeah, sure. I see what you're saying now. Yep. I think I would have to think about that one for a little while. It's like such a new way of thinking about it that it hadn't occurred to me before. But I mean, individual identity and identity problems. This doesn't seem to be. I mean, how many stories and fables and whatnot that have existed long before capitalism was the moral of the story that like the parents wanted the kid to be something the kid didn't want to be?
Well, it's not about the parents and the kid. It's about objective material reality.
Right. But my point being that the way that one identifies with the world and the constructs around them can't be just creation of sort of bourgeois, like postmodern
identity. I think it kind of can be, though, or the concept of like individualism really only emerging kind of like post Enlightenment, and in the way that it's obviously like you could say to someone like, "Hey, this is your body," and you know, if I fucking stab you in the heart, you'll die. Like, you know, it's individualism insofar as like you have a body, although, you know, maybe cultures viewed that as like, well, the body is a part of the world and vice versa. But like, yeah, like you are a person, but the kind of like I am a purely atomistic sort of individual would be alien, I think.
Okay. So the idea is that, to spin back the wheel of time when we're back in hunter-gatherer society, because the that it literally like it because the tensions and the sort of material realities, if I'm understanding and using the language correctly, of different like ways of creating hierarchies and oppression in a capitalist imperialist society didn't exist, then the idea of like it wouldn't even, back in hunter-gatherer times, it just wouldn't make sense to refer to someone as transgender. Like, that just wouldn't.
Well, I mean, like the concept literally didn't exist except for in societies where it did, which I mean, it's not the same as the modern instantiation of transgender, but this is one of the major holes of like the idea of there are people in cultures across the world who would blur the lines or like move between what were traditionally understood to be male and female gender roles. So that makes the story a little bit more complicated for sure. But you could also argue that that's essentially like woke anthropology, and that the ideological structure that allowed us to quote understand unquote that is actually like corrupted by ideology itself and is thus not worth paying attention to.
So in other words, you watch Game of Thrones, right?
No. But go ahead. Just shoot.
So you're saying do you know the character Arya Stark?
Yeah. She's
So the character,
she's a tomboy.
Yeah. So that character is purely a creation of modern times.
Yes.
There wasn't an I don't want to use the language because they obviously wouldn't have used it, but like back in the day when we were living in humanity in the human version of Game of Thrones, when things were sort of in that existence. Well, but there was some imperialism. It would go even further back to the beginning of civilization. You don't think that there was a little girl who said, like, "Mommy and Daddy, why can't I go out and hunt?"
Well, I mean, there are definitely like historical records of women performing male social roles or quote male. So, I mean, like Joan of Arc would be one.
Yeah.
Now I know how Joan of Arc felt. But yeah, I mean, yeah, that's
but how does
true.
that interact with all of this? Because gender roles like existed.
Yes, but not in the same way that we understand gender now.
Yeah, I mean, there certainly was no like,
yeah,
there was no intellectual distinction between gender and sex.
Sure. Yeah.
Well,
it's also like it's tautologically true to say like, well, things were different back then, so things were different back then, including gender. Like, yeah, of course they were. Like, no shit. I mean, it's a concept, right? Like, ultimately, all of this is like language, like gesturing at things in the world.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's some postmodernist shit right there.
So
it's not. No.
Is the takeaway here that there's an argument to be made of something along?
Hold on, your audio just cut. Oh, you're back. Never mind.
How about now? Good.
Yeah, you're good. Sorry, keep going.
Is there an argument here that follows something along the lines of, given reality as it is today, like it maybe is important to understand how people who are assigned a certain sex at birth just like don't identify with given like gender expectations, but maybe that the ideal state is one that's sort of like post-gender, where like the idea of a trans person just wouldn't even be necessary?
Maybe that's probably too postmodern for a lot of people. It's like we've gone beyond the to get really earnest for a second. I mean, like, yeah, I think that's something that like that I believe, but I have transhumanist sympathies, which is the idea that like we can and perhaps should modify our biology to do whatever we feel suits us. And so if that means like hormonal modification, mechanical modification, fucking sticking shit in your brain, hopefully not made by Elon Musk, because I don't want him living in my mind fuzz. But I'm generally sympathetic to the idea that people can, should, and in fact do already modify our bodies, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, you can view trans medical treatments, and I basically do, as just like, I think we should live in a society where people should have the freedom to be able to do this, even if they just want to. I know we can talk about like dysphoria and like discomfort. I would argue that anyone who has the desire to change their gender or secondary sex characteristics, or people's perception of their gender, like clearly they're somewhat uncomfortable with their gender. To define it in a negative sense or in a positive sense, they have a desire for something else, and maybe those two things are actually like the same thing, just expressed differently. But I'm pro body modification. It's also why I'm pro steroids, by the way. But you do have to be. This is not to say that just like run a bunch of tren and fucking kill yourself, but like you should be careful. But I'm saying that because I care about you, the viewer who's thinking about running tren. I guess if I don't know, but yeah. Sorry, did that ramble make sense? I don't even know what the question was.
I guess the ramble made sense. I'm curious about like what the. And tell me if this is not a question that's worth asking, but what is the... So when I think back, the gay rights movement and the trans movement, because they've happened in similar enough times, I feel like have sort of been blurred into one movement. But I think that there's a pretty... And I'm very open to the idea that gay folks might disagree with me on this, but I think that the goals of the gay rights movement are pretty don't involve a bunch. You don't need to use the word epistemic to understand like the goals of what gay people want. I do think that I try my best to listen to what is going on in the minds and the experience of trans folks, but I'm confused as to like what the ideal outcome is here. Is this even what you're talking about, or are you just concerned with like how it's talked about right now, and you're not even like exactly what the quote unquote perfect outcome is because you just don't know?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what the perfect outcome is. I'm talking on several different levels here.
Okay.
At that most recent part, I got way too genuine and talking about like my own political inclinations.
Well, no, that's what the people are here for.
No, it's not. But before that, I was kind of talking. I was trying to give the real Marxist Leninist perspective on transgenderism, which is that it doesn't really matter, but it's kind of stupid and sort of bourgeois. Decadence to some extent. But if trans people want to be a part of the movement, that's fine. Just don't make it our problem. Yeah, which I think
it does seem to me like I do think I agree with the idea that like there's been a part of me that has always reacted to this, like wanting to have empathy for just like how badly trans people are treated and like all of the bad shit that happens. So I'm not trying to like diminish that in any way. Obviously that stuff is real, but my hope or the part of me that like is intellectually curious about a lot of things, and just my honest reaction to it in the most like empathetic way possible is just like, I don't give a shit. You do whatever you want to do. Like that's my reaction to it. Like I just could not care less what someone else wants to do. In the same way that like someone getting plastic surgery, I'm just like, I don't care. But I understand that like a lot of other people don't have that reaction to it.
Yeah.
So I forgot where I was going with this, but I don't know. Do you think that it would be a positive outcome for most people to just kind of arrive at this point where they're just like, I don't give a
Yeah, I think that would be a really. But I think if people, if their general disposition was like, I don't really care on a personal level, and I'm generally kind of like empathetic to people. I mean, I think that would be great.
Yeah.
There's some very specific discussions we can have about trans women in sports, which I think is a very complicated topic. But I
Yeah, I
will
don't know
say I
where I
don't think the
land on that
government
one.
should. I don't think the government should legislate it. I think we should leave it up to the governing bodies of the individual sports, because I think it depends a lot on the sport, right? Like there's a very
Yeah.
big difference between like, I started estrogen 3 months ago,
Mhm.
and I've been lifting weights my entire adult life, and now I'm going to
Mhm.
compete as a woman, versus like I've been on estrogen 10 years and I want to um, play competitive pickleball. Like
Mhm.
those are just two entirely different things, and to
Yeah.
pretend that they're the same is frankly ridiculous. So to paint with a broad brush like that is very silly. Can you? I'm sorry. Can I jump for 1 sec? I gotta pee real
Mhm.
quick because I drank
Yeah,
this
yeah.
fucking juice. I'm gonna
Go
leave my
for it.
camera. All right. I'm sorry for having to jump so much. It's been a thrilling night of me boiling myself to death
No,
for your
you're all good.
entertainment. So
It
and
it
pissing myself
happens
to death.
happens to the best of us.
Dude, next time I'm gonna broadcast straight from the toilet. I'm just gonna sit in my bathroom with a microphone.
I saw a clip of a podcast today with, I didn't know the guy, but it was a podcast where they do it in a bathtub.
Mm-hmm.
Have you seen this?
No, but it sounds awesome.
Yeah, it was this dude and Valkyrie in a bathtub.
Oh god. Okay, so it's like a sex thing.
Very very much a sex thing. But
Okay, because
apparently the guy is gay. Because I was a little
okay.
like, they're like up on each other.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, is this a thing? But it said it was a podcast, so I'm assuming he does this with a lot of people. And I'm like, I can't imagine like being a female streamer and hopping in a bathtub with a dude who's got his shirt off. But I don't know, anything for content, I guess.
I don't know, dude. Anything for content. Tune in next week where I stick a firecracker up my ass. I think it'd be funny if we just both broadcasted. We were both video chatting, but we were both just in our tubs with like a bunch of bubbles and our rubber ducks. That could be a good gimmick.
That'd be pretty cool.
Like
I've been wanting to get
a
what are the stopper thing so I can actually take a bath.
Yeah, dude. I can't fit in any bathtub. Even though
Yeah,
I'm very
that's another
short,
problem.
but yeah,
Mm.
I
Yeah,
just
it's
want
because you're too wide.
I am too wide. I'm 5'3". I'm about 250, I think, right now.
Well, speaking of guys who are 5'3" and about 250, what's your take on Jeff Nippard?
On the Mike Van Wyck situation.
Yeah. I mean, not that there's
dude.
much to say, but it's just
I mean,
funny.
there's. Did you see Rick De La Stick, aka Mr. Spice, aka Johnny Horsecock, aka Eric Bugenhagen's take on the whole situation?
No, I did not.
He had maybe the best one ever, which he was like, guys, this is why you should train wrestling. Because wouldn't it have been awesome if Jeff just double legged him? Like, because wrestling is a man's sport. Because you got to learn to tussle, okay? You got to tussle. So his whole point was that, like, yeah, obviously Mike Van Wyck is a jackass, but it would have been based if Jeff Nippard just did a double leg takedown.
It would have been hilarious.
Yeah, it would be.
If you're really trained in wrestling or any sort of what would you call it, combat sport?
Yeah, combat sport.
Can someone who's 180 pounds do anything to a guy who's 300?
Yeah. Well, speaking from experience, I was, when I was significantly more jacked than I am now, and doing jujitsu, got like pretzeled by a woman who weighed about 110 pounds.
Okay.
Yeah. Especially like a double leg. Like if you get the jump on someone and you just like sweep their legs out from under them, which is essentially like what that is. Yeah. I mean, I guess it's just leverage at that point, but yeah. You can definitely turn the tables a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Well, to connect Van Wyck to Nick Fuentes, that he is the exact kind of person who his ego is such that I do get satisfaction from people like dunking on him on the internet.
Oh, dude, he's such a fucking smug prick. Mike Van Wyck, if you're seeing this, I guess come slap me or something. I don't know. I guess it'd be funny.
Come choke me out.
Ever see this? Yeah, come choke me out, dude.
Yeah.
Please.
All we got to do
come,
is make like gay jokes
come
around
choke
him,
me
and he'll
up.
get too uncomfy and he'll leave.
Yeah, he'll be into a if I go, ooh, daddy. I think he would run away. Um yeah, dude.
What
Dude, he was Drake's bodyguard.
Yeah, I heard that as part of
He's
the
very
drama.
reputable.
Very reputable guy. Did you see the clip of? There was a clip of him where now he has a bodyguard, and some like guy came up to him and was like, "Hey, can we verify like your height and weight?"
Yes, yeah, I saw
Did you
that
see
clip.
Yeah.
Yeah.
His bodyguard is just like, "I'm gonna kill you. I
I'm
am going
gonna
to kill you." He said it like 10 times. It's like, come on, man, be a little more
Just
subtle.
threatening to kill a guy. Yeah, dude,
Yeah,
that's
like
fucking awesome.
that's not the job of a bodyguard. I don't know, but if I was a bouncer at a bar and I like threatened to kill someone, like I think I would get fired.
Yeah, probably. I don't.
Like,
Well,
you
it
can't
depends
just
on like
say that, right?
if it's a credible threat of violence. Like if I was like, I'm gonna kill you, haha, that's whatever. But like if I was like, here's my fucking gun, I'm going to kill you. I mean, that becomes a credible threat of violence, and yeah, I think you can get in real trouble for that because they're taking away our free speech. You used to be able to say that. You used to be able to threaten to kill people and run around in the streets with a chainsaw. Not anymore because of woke.
This is quite a good debate in 12 Angry Men.
I've actually
which
never
we
seen
referenced
12
last
Angry
time.
Men because I'm a culturally illiterate cuck.
You didn't watch it in high school English class like me? I don't know why we watched it in English.
I don't know. That's a great
we did.
movie to watch in English. I feel like I don't know.
It was a phenomenal day of English. Really stood out to me watching that movie.
I sort of appreciate. I don't know. Maybe this is a controversial opinion, but I think showing kids movies in English class periodically, like actual good historically important films, kind of good idea.
Yeah,
I'm for that in as some kind of like broad cultural literacy thing.
Mm-hmm. Movies can make points really well.
Yeah, I think so.
And they can be cool ways of conveying some pretty interesting messages.
Mm-hmm. Those are my favorite essays to write in high school. Because I was watching a lot of one of the OG YouTube like real film analysis channels or film criticism channels called Every Frame a Painting. And I was like, if I can do what this guy is doing, a tenth as good in this essay, that would be great. And I don't think I did, but
probably not. Probably got a solid A though.
Oh, dude, I failed everything.
Am I right?
Oh. I was on academic probation. I'm basically like I'm the Mike Van Wyck of whatever state I grew up in.
Getting bad grades.
I got bad grades. I was hard. I was a hard man. I was rock solid hard man.
Hard.
I was a rock hard man. No, I was following the Mike Van Wyck thing like as it happened.
I just stumbled across it today, so it's fresh on the brain.
I'm deep in
poor Mr. Jeff.
Poor Jeff. I think he's okay, but yeah,
he's probably going to make some money off of it.
Yeah, I hope he makes money. It was over such a it was like the most respectful rebuttal that could possibly be given. And then did you see like the stuff?
I think that's probably what angered Van Wyck the most.
Yeah, exactly.
It was because that is one of the most disrespectful, like to someone with that ego, that is the most, like if someone yells at him, if Jeff just yells, then he can do the whole like, no, you think you're a tough guy, like whatever shtick, and he can out deep voice him, out like cigarette voice him or whatever. Yeah. But when Jeff is actually just like you said that the things I have to say are irrelevant here. I actually have like more impressive, like one of the most to the average YouTube viewer who is not using steroid, like maybe the best credentials on YouTube.
Yeah. I mean, he's got to be up there. Yeah. I mean, like he's definitely like a reputable guy. He seems like a genuine dude. You can argue. I like the dialectic between Jeff Nippard and then Eric Bugenhagen's reactions to Jeff Nippard, which if you've never seen them, go watch. I'll send some of those. But it's Eric just standing in front of his TV. He doesn't even like multicam it. He's just standing in front of his TV and he watches a Jeff Nippard video. I think there was one where he made, I think it was an upwards of an hour video on 10 minutes of Jeff footage. So he's pausing like every like 2 seconds and he's like, boys, here's the thing. Also, he doesn't have YouTube Premium, so sometimes ads just come up on the TV, and you just have to like sit there and wait. It's great. I love them so much.
The boog.
But yeah, the boogs. There's the dialectic between the kind of like overly scientific, like hyper optimized, and the just like I just want to horse cock big weights. You have to have both. Not that I horse cock big weights anymore or ever. Really, for that matter, but
yeah, you kind of need a little bit of both.
Yeah,
because without Jeff Nippard, then we're stuck in some real. Then we're like without the Jeff Nippards of the world, we're still spending our time like having debates about like the optimal like bro split.
Mm-hmm.
We're stuck
which
back
is
in like is no one's even pushing for PPL. It's just like buys every day or some shit. I don't know. Like people are just stuck in like bro science land. Like there needs to be some science to whatever you're pushing. But at the end of the day, the balance of like it being fun. This applies to literally everything. This applies to like all creative endeavors of any kind.
And actually all endeavors.
Just like all endeavors of any kind. Like if you want to get good at it, you need to know what you're doing and understand like what the broader community has done before you, but like if it's not fun, then you're not going to keep doing it, and it doesn't even matter.
Yes, yeah, it's the balance between optimal and passion. And
losing the is this a losing the or losing the forest for the trees? Forgetting the forest for the trees? Is that a
losing the forest for the trees?
Is that too common to be a boomerism?
A boomerism? I feel like that's too common. But I also use that a lot because I am a boomer at heart. Yeah, I always thought fucking Dave Tate was exaggerating when he said everything I learned about life I learned through lifting weights. But it's kind of true, but it's like you can really just take any hobby and extrapolate it when you really understand it to everything. But exercise science is interesting specifically because it teaches you a lot about philosophy of science. If you really get nitty gritty with it, where it's like you get to the point and there's a really, it's not a good debate, but it's an interesting debate between Mike Israetel and Lyle McDonald, who's a fucking exercise scientist from OG internet.
I don't know Lyle McDonald. I definitely know Israetel though.
Yes. Well, so Lyle. But ultimately what they get into is making inferences from like p-values and like what is and is not like statistically significant. And it's like, okay, so this kind of like ultimately breaks down as to like, how do we determine significance? And like, what does it mean for something to have a p-value of like 0.06 versus 0.05, which the 0.06 is by most considerations, like not significant using an alpha value of 0.05, but like, is it really like in the real world? Because that seems pretty significant. And like shit like that. So yeah.
Yeah, the arbitrary lines we draw. I mean, it is to someone who is lost in the sauce of like all the way down the ultimate Jeff Nippard rabbit hole and is like full blown lost in the like science can answer every question. They sound. Their arguments, if you really challenge them on their arguments, gets pretty silly pretty quick in the same way that someone who's just like pure bro science. The logic behind what they're saying gets pretty silly pretty quick.
Yeah. That's why I like running because everyone knows the answer. There's this one guy on the letsrun.com forums whose username is just run baby. And the only thing I think I've ever seen him post is just run baby.
Yeah.
So someone will be like, how do I get my marathon time down from like 3:19 to like sub 3? And it's just like, just run, baby. just run more. And ultimately, like that's the answer to lifting too. Even though the minimalists don't want to hear it, is You want to lift more? Well, you got to lift more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. How do I get stronger? Well, you get
You tried
stronger.
lifting more? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. If you tried lifting more than you did last time.
Have you tried trying? That was a big Reddit meme in like 2019.
Yeah.
But it's I mean, it's correct.
Yeah.
Say again.
It's true. In my relative, well, no, I lifted pretty routinely for like something like 6 years. But also I ran a marathon, so I've got some experience with some of this stuff. And that the like, it is cool to talk about someone who gets it. And oh my god, nothing will piss off everyone else in the room more than like two people who really get like really geeking out on like intense exercise.
Oh
But like
god,
when
yeah, it's just awful. Yeah.
if you're like in a room full of people, and there's like two people who've run a marathon, and the two people who've run the marathon are like, yeah, man. So like, when did you realize like what you thought you were tired, like you were actually just warming, like going through that whole process,
Mhm.
talking about whatever. Oh god, it's fun. And it's a lot.
But
It's a lot of fun.
it is insufferable.
It is
Yeah.
insufferable.
It is insufferable.
Until you find someone else who does it.
Yes.
And then
I was going to
and then
say,
it's a lot
I
of
was
fun.
going to try to extrapolate that to like any kind of like, well, if I was in a room and I was a film buff and I found another like film buff, like, would that be
Yeah.
as insufferable? And the answer is kind of, but I also think there's something that's like ultimately more, because you can be a film buff and it's like, oh, I'm really into German expressionism. And then this other guy's like, I'm really into like Kurosawa or something. I don't know. But like when it's physical things, there are real human biological signals that tie us all together where it's like you all know, like everyone knows what the wall in a marathon is who's run a marathon.
Yes.
And it's universal to some extent. So
yeah. There
that
is
makes it even worse.
There is a deep connection there, which is real, but it also is like once you about it, I mean, then you're kind of just like, yeah, like there's the wall. Like, what else are you gonna? How else are you gonna describe it? You know,
I'm doing
whereas
a
at least with like
microcosm here,
film, I know, but at least with film, you can like keep going a little deeper. No, but there's a lot to talk about. With I have another friend named Alex who ran a marathon, and there's, as I'm sure you do with all your powerlifting buddies. I never got into that, but there's just an infinite amount to talk about with something as simple as how do I run. How do I run 26.2 miles there's enough to talk about to last a lifetime. And there's also, the answer is always just run, baby.
Yes. Just run, baby. There's always like my brother Nick and I talk about lifting weights, not because I lift weights anymore. I mean, I lift, but I don't lift. But I coach him, which is weird, but it's like, how many ways can we talk about, how many different conversations can we have about moving a barbell in 3 different ways? For Pat, it's so stupid,
but it's fun.
It
is fun. It's really weird how fun it is. I need someone to explain it to me, but it's really fun to talk about it. It's almost more fun than when you.
It's more fun to talk about lifting. Than
no, but nothing. I mean, nothing beats like a day where the caffeine just hits perfectly and you're like feeling strong. Your veins are pumping like the pump.
I had that in the gym the other day, and I don't lift all that much anymore. But also when you start doing weird lifts and people look at you funny, I live for that.
Yeah, I do not.
I really enjoy that.
I
got this. There's one squat rack at the Planet Shitness that I go to, and sometimes it's taken and sometimes it's not. So I was just like, fuck it. I'm just going to take everything from the floor. Like every lift that I do now starts on the floor. So I'm getting into Zercher squatting, where you lift up the bar, you put it on your knees, you kind of like bend down, wrap your arms around it, and then lift, like squat with the bar and like the crook of your elbows.
Interesting.
Does that make sense? Yeah.
Yeah, I think I can visualize it. Yeah,
it's
I would
super,
look a little funny at you.
Like, it's very awkward, but it's very fun. So that's my.
Why not just? I remember you doing one of my most memorable Alex lifting weights moments in college was when you did squatting. You did like your 1 rep max. I don't know if it was your max, but you did 90% of your 1 rep max or whatever it was for like, you did 20 sets of 1 rep.
Oh yeah,
Do
yeah.
you
I
remember
was
that?
doing the Jamie Lewis. Yeah. Dude, that shit was awesome. That shit really worked. That'll
Yeah.
get you really strong really fast and really sore really fast. But yeah.
20. What's the warm up to doing 20 sets of one rep?
You just warm up
Warm
how
up
you
like
normally
normal.
would. I don't know. Just keep going
But
till it
but
feels
it's just,
good.
you got to get to the point where, because you got to build up a lot of weight. But I guess you're not, in one sense, you're not worried about exhausting yourself. In another, you are.
No, you definitely you are, but it's in a very different kind of way because it was
Yeah.
like I think the exact product it was roughly 85% rounded to the nearest convenient plate increment um, for 20 singles going I think every 30 seconds on the dot.
Every 30. Oh,
Yeah, it
God.
was every 30 or 40 seconds. Yeah.
But
Um,
it doesn't sound, on the one hand, it doesn't sound that bad. And then yeah. I feel like my joints would break.
no, dude, it makes you it builds character and it builds I don't know connective tissue strength or some bullshit. I don't know the science
Yeah.
behind this, but honestly, it probably does, right? Where it's like getting exposure to really heavy. Basically, it's like whatever you're not doing, do it, and you'll probably benefit in some way. Just don't start too aggressively, otherwise you'll fuck your shit up. Maybe that's the key to everything in life.
Yeah. That question always messed me up in the gym. Was like,
Which question?
um, if I was trying to implement a new exercise, like trying to, on the one hand, train harder than I did last time, but on the other
Mhm.
hand, not jump into things too fast and start lifting too heavy too fast to the point where I'm like screwing up my form. I had a hard time finding the in between. It
Yeah,
always messed me up mentally.
yeah. I mean, I think I've always like really liked high frequency stuff.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah, me
I'm going to
too.
tie this
That's my
back. I'm
favorite.
going to tie this back into something in a second. So it's like if you just start with like I don't know, let's say eventually you want to be doing like 5 sets of 5 or like 8 sets of 5. It's like week one is just like I don't know, go in there and do 3 sets of 5, 2 or 3 sets of 5 that are like kind of heavy. And then
Hmm.
you hit it again a couple days later and you add a set and some more weight, et cetera, et cetera. So it just builds on itself. But ultimately
Hmm.
it's kind of like it's one of those things that I feel like comes with experience where it's just like, yeah, this feels about right. And I know that like
Yeah.
next time, like I can probably beat this next time. But
Yeah.
I had this thing where I was like, I was gonna like teach myself math, and I still want to do this. Um, this was like 6 months. I got really into it, or I was just doing like I was like, I'm going to start with college algebra, and I'm going to go from there. I was spending like 4 or 5 hours a day, um, just like sitting at my desk, ostensibly doing my job. Just doing a quiet period of the quarter. But I was just doing math problems. Um, and I just got to the point where I was like, I hate this. Um, and I burned out on it. And then I didn't want to look at math, and I didn't want to solve simple algebra for far too long.
Hmm.
Again, after that, so I think there's a lesson in here about
Yeah.
starting
What inspired
reasonable.
you to learn some math? Were you trying to like transition jobs or something, or is it just interest?
No, I just wanted to. I don't know.
You
It's
just want to get
like
good at
how I
math.
want to understand Hegel, but I don't understand Hegel.
Yeah. Yeah, me too. Tell me about it. One day I'll understand Hegel. That's the ultimate goal.
Dude, I'm part of some reading group, which you can join by the way, probably if you want. I don't see why you wouldn't be. If it works for your schedule. And we did
Is
a
it's like
reading.
online or
No,
Zoom or
it's
whatever?
like people we know from college and
Oh,
affiliated
oh, oh,
people.
oh. Oh, I see. Yeah, yeah.
And we read the intro to Reason and Revolution by Marcuse, um, where he talks about Hegel's It's like if you look up notes on dialectic Marcuse, it's that's what we
Hmm.
read. And that is some heady shit. And then one of the guys in the group was like, dude, like you can't start people with this. Like you're gonna scare people off. And there's two guys who have like kind of no familiarity with leftist theory, and he wants to read like Mao and stuff, which is like valid. But on the other hand, I feel like there needs to be some kind of progression to like, going from you have to go through the dark night of the soul that is trying to understand phenomenology of spirit.
I always wonder about what the right order of reading is for primary leftist / Marxist / whatever text.
Dude, there probably fucking isn't one. I mean, it's like the lifting thing. It's like, what is the optimal what is the optimal split for leftist theory? What is
I am realizing, I think one of the positive things that's come out of the past year of, speaking of insufferable things, talking about positive things that have happened in therapy. But like one of the positive things that I think has come out of my therapy is realizing like, oh shit, I have like brain rot of like capitalist optimization about everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's really bad.
Were you like that as a kid? Like, were you a perfectionist as a kid?
Okay. No, I don't think so. No, like not at all. I just wanted shit to be fun. I was big into fun, big into what's cool. But I've got this like it. I don't know if you're this OCD about it. I was trying to introduce my girlfriend to Star Wars. She'd never seen any of it. I was like, yeah, this is the thing I thought was fun growing up. But then like I couldn't stop myself from trying to make her watch the Clone Wars animated show between
2
and 3 because I'm like, no, but it's an important part of the story. But then I think about back on it, and I'm like, oh, Chris, you dumb, cringe, stupid, like what the hell? Just let it be. Just let it be. She doesn't need to see it. But it's like optimal. I don't know. I don't even know if that's optimal, but it's everything's got to be perfect.
I've actually thought this through, and I've determined the optimal viewing order for Star Wars.
Yeah, what is it?
It's Andor season 1.
Is the first thing that anyone watches when they watch Star Wars content?
Yeah, and that's it.
Oh, I see. I see.
No,
now
I'm just I quite like Andor season 1.
I'm a big simp for Andor season 1.
I hope season 2 is good if it ever happens.
No, it's coming soon.
Oh, okay. But yeah, I think that's the best Star Wars thing of them all, and I like Star Wars.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, I like Andor season 1 a lot.
Let's nerd out for a sec. What do you actually think the optimal? If you were, let's say, I'm the perfect specimen. I'm a nerdy guy who's never seen Star Wars somehow. And I'm like, what's the optimal way to watch this? What do you think it is?
Just the movies, or are we talking
whatever you want to bring into it, you can bring into it. How about that?
Well, if I have faith that they're enough of a nerd, would get into
I pledge
TV.
myself to you. I will fucking watch whatever.
Well, I haven't even seen all of the TV, so I don't know how much I would. As far as the TV I've watched, it's very possible that the only thing I actually recommend is. So let me. I need to determine that. But anyways, the movies I would say. I actually genuinely think that the best way to watch the movies is in the order that they.
Yeah,
to someone who
I
hasn't
agree.
seen them.
Yeah.
Watching things as they came out and sort of experiencing it, obviously not the same way. But I would be very, and I don't know if you as about to get obsessed with this universe would listen to me, but I would all caps scream at you and say, I would try and find any way to convince you that 7, 8, and 9 are fan film or something that's not real. Just do anything in my power to get you to stop you from watching them.
Hold on, your audio keeps cutting, but I assume you just said that you would try and convince me that 7, 8, and 9 are fan films that are not worth watching.
Yes,
which is true, by the way. As a good leftist, by the way, I hate Star Wars, but I also, as a nerd, I do like some Star Wars things.
Dude, at a certain point, leftists got to stop hating everything, man.
No, dude, it's Well, I think what they do is they misinterpret being critical as just like disliking things. Also,
Yeah.
once you read the culture industry once, and you're like, oh my god, everything is garbage, which is kind of true. Or not that everything is garbage, but that ultimately all media is
It could be so much better.
produced in some sense, or well, yeah, the
Yes.
fact that it's but it's whatever, art under capitalism, yada yada yada.
Yeah,
But
yeah, that whole. I think I would like to have that conversation separate from the individual films.
yeah, from the individual thing, because it's like that becomes that, because once you bring that in, it's like that is the entire conversation. I would call it a thought terminating cliche, but it's not a cliche. And it's not really thought terminating. It's just thought redirecting. And it's probably, frankly, more fucking important than talking about Star Wars lore and like, oh my God, I can't believe what they've done to Boba Fett. Especially
with
because
the fucking drama online regarding the newest show that came out this summer. Holy
was that the one where the tentacle head person?
No, maybe
What was the new one?
it was what was it called? I'm not gonna remember what the heck it was called, but it was about it took place like 100 or so years before Phantom Menace.
Okay, interesting.
So it was not during the era where there was like the most Jedi, but it was still like the Republic was like really booming. And there hadn't been any sign of the Sith in a long time. But the creator of the show was a woman, and there were like black witches who were like practicing the Force but weren't Jedi, and just there was enough identity-based things to trigger the conservative Star Wars male fandom to the point where it got like it was mind-boggling to me how toxic it got online. Like, even I know everything gets toxic, but it was like the show was just so remarkably average. And obviously there was more of an emphasis on hiring a diverse cast than in prior Star Wars content. But it wasn't like there's so much you could point to in the world in terms of clearly pushing a political message. Like, I didn't really get the vibe that it was doing that per se. It was more just like putting more women and more non-characters into the show. But the conversation online, it was just mind-blowing. Like channels with like millions of subscribers, Star Wars lore fans, borderline crying on camera about being destroyed.
Dude. Well, I mean, that's the thing, and that's what people discovered after episode 8. It was like Gamergate all over again, as people discovered that there was actually I was going to call it a cottage industry, but it's really like an industry proper about ranting about shit on YouTube. And so the financial incentives make it so that no one can ever say that like, it's fucking mid, which is like, which is probably what it is. I haven't seen it or kept up with any of the Star Wars shows. But like realistically, it's probably mid, but it's like, it's so woke. And honestly, these fucking sweaty dudes are probably so whipped up that they like believe it at this point. Like, I mean,
yes, no, they're really passionate about
they're
it.
so bought in.
There's a scene,
ruining Star Wars. It's ruined.
You know, Kiadi Mundi?
Is that tall head guy?
Tall head guy.
Yeah.
There's a scene in Phantom Menace where he says, where Qui-Gon is like talking about like interaction with, I think, Maul or something, and he's like, it felt like he was trained in the Sith or whatever, right? He says, but when Qui-Gon gets back from Tatooine and he's talking to the Jedi Council, and talking about his fight, and he's like, it seems like the guy was trained in the Sith arts or whatever. And Kiadi Mundi says, like, the Sith haven't been heard of for 500 years. And there's someone in this show that came out this summer who is definitely like Sith. And there's a Jedi like task force that's
McCannon.
There's a Jedi task force that's investigating it. Now, Kiadi Mundi is not on the team that actually goes out and interacts with the Sith, but Kiadi Mundi is like involved in the task force, so it's very plausible that he would have known these group of Jedi going out and interacting with the Sith. So there was The possibility that Candy Money knew that the Sith were around 100 years prior as opposed to 500.
Or
people made 30-minute essays on it.
Oh my God. I mean, I can come up with two dumb answers and the real answer right now. First of all, I mean, his head's so goddamn tall. I mean, probably the memory got lost up there somewhere. Second of all, maybe it was like a black operation. It was deniable plausibility, and Ki-Adi-Mundi is actually a part of the Jedi CIA. Which is a potentially interesting take. But the real answer is that canon is bullshit. And the nerd culture's obsession with, like, is it canon? Is it not canon? This breaks canon, blah, 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 is going to be the fucking death of media, probably. And if it's not, it should be. It's such...
Go ahead.
It's such horseshit. And it's like, it's like, first of all, who the fuck cares? Like, is the story good? Is it emotionally resonant? Does it have something to say, or doesn't it? Yeah. All right. Sorry. Yeah.
It's a way of giving people something to look forward to in a mediocre.
Yes. It's like Easter egg laying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we can make films that don't offend anyone, that everyone will show up to, and we give the nerds some Easter eggs, and we give everyone else just like a generic film to come away from. And they're like I remember walking out of the latest Indiana Jones family with all of my and actually having one of these like leftist just like meltdowns, because I walked out and everyone was like, yeah, that was pretty good. And I'm just like, we have to have higher expectations, people. Like, come. I was having one of these just like art under capitalism moments where I was like, please no. It was so bad.
Please, no.
So bad. It was so bad. Did you watch it?
No, and I'm not going to. I feel the same way about Harrison Ford as I do about like Joe Biden, honestly. He's just like this old guy who they keep dragging out for one last role.
That's right. Yeah, when they brought him back in Star Wars. And you just you see him on the Falcon, and he just pulls out his pistol. It's like, Chewie. And the whole theater erupts in applause as if we just like cured cancer or some crap.
Yeah. Oh my God, dude. I liked him in Blade Runner, where he came back and was like, hey, Deckard's back. But like, first of all, I mean, Rick Deckard is not exactly Han Solo. But
was he in the second Blade Runner?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't even remember that.
Yeah. It's
the main character, Ryan, was he?
No, Ryan Gosling goes to fucking Vegas, goes to Orange Vegas, and then finds Rick Deckard. And he's
right?
Like,
yes. Yep, I remember that now.
But he wasn't a big part of the movie. I mean, he was a big part of the movie, but he's not in the first like half. At least first.
Yeah.
Anyway, whatever.
He's a big part, only assuming you like remember everything about his character from the first. What do you think of the first Blade Runner?
Dude, I think I watched it like 10 years ago, and I don't remember it striking me that much.
Yeah, I did not like it.
Which maybe I need to go back, because I really liked 2049. So maybe I'm
a pretty big Denis simp, but I didn't really like 2049 that much. Everyone else loves it. I need to watch it again, because
dude, it's the message of it's about revolution. It's about you think you're someone special, and then you're not, but ultimately it doesn't matter. The idea, it's a deconstruction of having to be the guy. That's what the movie's about. And it's about a bunch of other things too.
To be the guy.
Because
I think I would be into that.
I'm the guy. And then he's like, no, you're not the guy. But it doesn't matter.
But he still has to save the day.
Yeah.
Even though he's not the guy. So doesn't that make him the guy, though?
Yes, exactly. Through not being the guy and accepting that he's not the guy, he becomes deconstructed the guy, and he becomes a guy, because change is about a bunch of guys. Yeah.
Change is about a bunch of guys as opposed to the guy.
Yeah, it's not about the guy.
Yeah.
It's about a bunch of other things too.
In history, there are some guys that are the guy.
I don't know, dude. I think there's a few people, and then there's a lot of other people who just have good marketing.
Yeah.
Who's like the guy? I can think of one well, I can think of two. One is pretty bad, and one is horrible. So
Well, in the civil rights movement, I only think MLK is the guy.
Well, yeah, but I mean, like, who is MLK without a Malcolm X or without like a Rosa Parks? And then who is even Rosa Parks without the people who organized her? Like Rosa Parks was this is not to denigrate her or anything, but was a political activist who was chosen because it's like, look how ridiculous this system is that's going to like kick an old feeble woman to like out of her seat to a bus. So it's like there's there's a bunch of people whose names we don't even know or remember. Hopefully they're written down somewhere and we're just stupid, but who are involved with the civil rights movement. So like this isn't to take away from like Martin Luther King, but it wasn't, he was not like, he definitely, well, there's some reading where it's like he was the guy, but like the guy isn't possible without a lot of other guys, I guess is what I'm saying.
Well, of course. Yeah, I feel like in a lot of big movements, there is someone who accepts kind of your premise. Like people who are really the guy are people who accept that they are a guy who just get prompted up to become the guy by the rest of the group. In some ways.
You can't become a world historic person by trying to be a world historic person. Yes. Except for Napoleon, who maybe disproves the whole thing because he was like, I'm going to fucking do it. And he did it.
And something Cage, the economist.
Nicolas Cage, the economist.
Nicolas Cage. No, is it Cage? Gage? Maybe? One of them from the 20th century. Gage.
Dude, I don't know who you're talking about.
You did the last time I referenced, because there's a movie about him and I talked to you about it afterwards and you're like, oh, that guy? Yeah. What the heck? There's a movie about him?
Keynes? No.
You
probably make a movie about Keynes, though. That guy.
The movie is called A Beautiful Mind.
John Nash.
Nash
wasn't the guy, though. He was just
no. But what I don't know if this is true at all or historically true, but in the film, when he's in college, his whole shtick is, I'm going to make the next, like, I'm not going to go to class because I need to make a big discovery or like prove a new theory or something. He's like, I'm going to come up with a thing. And then he does.
Yeah, but I mean, to quote,
but it's only relevant to like economists. It's not really that game changing. I don't know about it.
Yeah, game theorists, I guess. But like, I mean, to quote Galileo, like, if I have seen far, it's because I stood. This is what Galileo said. It's because I stood on the shoulders of giants. That's what he sounded like. But yeah, I mean, it's true.
That's why they locked him in his home and said, "Stay away from the children, you freaking weirdo."
What do you mean? I just want to talk about the planet.
Hey, boy, come here. I just want to show you something up in the sky up
there. Galileo Biden. Come here. Come here, Jack. I'm going to tell you what kind of ice cream they have on Venus.
Oh, Joe.
Isn't it weird that we call Galileo by his first name? Why is that?
Because Galilee stinks. Galileo is much better.
An alternate. Man, this guy stinks. That's what everyone would say. If he
no one would remember Galilei. It's incomplete.
I thought it was I don't know how to pronounce it. Galilee.
Galilee.
Galileo Galilee. I don't know, dude. I'm not.
It's not Galilei. I like Galilei better. Oh my gosh, there's a wax museum image of him that's terrifying. He made it to 77. Galileo de Vincenzo Bonato de Galilei. Yeah, probably Galilee if it's Italian, right? He was Italian.
Italian.
He was born in the 1500s. Can you believe that? Can you imagine being born in the 1500s?
I can't believe that. That's incredible.
It's hard for me to imagine like the 1500s were like a real period of time. Like the world was just so different.
I feel like
primitive society, I can kind of imagine it, but like, I don't know, like the 1500s, seems fake.
Yeah, history in my head goes people walking around not wearing anything, clubbing animals and each other to death. Then Babylon happened. Then all of the Bible happened.
Yeah.
Then somewhere in there's Greece, then Rome.
Greece
then
was before the Bible.
No, Greece was well, if you want to get historical, Greece was actually after the Bible, right?
Well, okay, wait. What do we mean by when we say the Bible?
I'm
In terms
sorry.
of-
I
in
should
terms of
clarify. I'm
making-
referring.
doing pop
because
history.
I was referring to the Old Testament, and then
Aha,
Rome
aha.
happens, and then the New Testament happens.
But Greece happens before Rome. Yeah, the Old Testament, then Greece, then Rome, the New Testament.
Yes. Then Rome falls. Then Europe is a shit. By the way, I have no idea what's going on in the rest of the world. It could, yeah, China was awesome or something, and yeah,
Yeah. When
and,
like Khan happened, Khan the Conqueror,
Genghis Khan.
Genghis. Yeah, don't people also call him Khan the Conqueror? Or am I making that up?
Khan the Conqueror. I don't know, maybe colloquially.
Did I make that up in my sleep? Khan the.
Apparently, his name is actually pronounced something closer to like Chengiz.
You know, I just did the most embarrassing thing potentially I've ever done. I confused him with Kang the Conqueror.
Kang. Kang the
God.
Conqueror.
Kang the Conqueror. That's funny. Anyways, continue your history.
Then fall of Rome, and then Europe basically, and then Vikings maybe.
Yeah.
And then there's the Battle of 1066, which the British have somehow It's really amazing. When I visited the UK a couple of years ago, it's really amazing how like the British have mythologized basically a bunch of like warlords into like, oh, they were early kings. Like, no, these were just dudes who like marshaled a bunch of people and fucking got some castles built. And we're like, I'm going to kill you. You go against me. And then that happened. And then the plague happened. And then everything was terrible. And then the Enlightenment happened. And that's when history started, IMO. So, yeah.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Somewhere mixed in there is like the Renaissance, but you know, something like that.
Oh, yeah. Well, the Renaissance is after the Black Plague.
Yeah. Is after? Oh.
Yeah. It's
Wait,
yeah.
I thought the plague was in like the 1500s. When was the plague?
1300s, right?
Oh. So the Renaissance was after that?
Yes.
So the Renaissance happened right before the start of the sort of modern era of whatever you want.
Yeah, the Renaissance was the beginning of shit getting good. We should clarify there were in fact multiple plagues, but I'm referring to the Black Death, where like a third of the population of Europe died, which is bananas.
Yeah. Bananas. When do you think like every American started to eat bananas all the time? Like when did that happen?
Well, isn't this where the term banana republic comes from? I'm going to say bananas entered popular consumption in the 30s, and the U.S. started fucking around doing things in Central America and deposing people. Specifically, didn't like the Dole Fruit Company? I'm going to say the 30s. I'm going to say the 30s are when bananas started to become like a thing, like in the United States.
Yeah.
When did
it looks like they came to the United States in 1870.
Yeah, but were they like
1910?
A novelty?
Okay, this is according to AI overview. 1910, bananas were so common that streets were littered with peels.
that's when everyone was slipping on banana peels. Everyone was just
the 1910, like back in like the beginning of cars, like that must have been a fun time to be.
You drive your automobile and run over a bunch of banana peels and cream into a banana stand and then scatter more banana peels. It's like the 1910s version of the AI paperclip. The careening automobile into the world devolves into a series of cars crashing into banana stands, causing more cars to crash. That was before World War I happened. Everyone was more concerned about.
Yeah, there hadn't been a
peels.
world war yet. Yeah, what a time. Back when you thought everything was going to be great forever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't think anyone thought that. Everyone was like, "There's going to be a." Everyone was like, "There's going to be a massive war at some point between France and Germany," and then it happened, and it was way worse than anyone thought it was going to be.
I don't know. I think those two countries were a little bit of a territory at that point. Like everyone was like, yeah, they keep saying they're going to, or they've tried to do it so many times, but no one else ever gets involved. It's always just that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, yeah. The end of Napoleonic or gentlemanly warfare, where we fight a series of battles, you get some territory, we get some territory. Basically, nothing ever happens.
Nothing ever happens. Think about how many people died just for France to gain a little, and then for England.
You mean in World War I or prior to World War I?
No, just all time. Like that region of the world. Like how many people have died just for one person to get a little bit more land and then back, and then
10 billion.
I mean, isn't that like really messed up?
Yeah, it's really fucked up, dude. It's
really
awful.
Bad. There's so many people whose lives, like, I just cannot think of a more wasted death than like some like Duke of Ellington gaining another castle.
What about slipping on a banana peel and dying? I guess at least that's funny, right? Like there's
it's funny and like death. It's kind of like your fault.
But is it though? Are we really victim blaming here?
No, of course not. Like really, but I can like, if I was born in the times of one of these battles, I would have had no choice but to go fight. Like I can convince myself I could spot a banana and stop myself from slipping.
You could plausibly not die from the banana.
I can, yeah, the same way I can plausibly convince not gonna go get in a car accident, but that really isn't actually up to me.
Probably
but
not.
I convince myself it's up to me in order to not go insane. Human psychology, baby.
Human psychology. Gotta love it. All right, well, we really ran the gamut here. But media is dead and we have killed it. And actually, to bring this all back around, fuck Iron Man for putting us in this situation.
Yeah.
And fuck wokeism for making us talk about it.
Wokeism made us talk about Iron Man.
No, wokeism made us talk about wokeism. We're on like meta wokeism, where I'm actually like, I think we're actually 2028. Here's what's going to happen. We're going to end on our predictions. 2028. People are going to get so tired of hearing about wokeism that they actually become anti woke. And this is the mainstream position of just shut the fuck up. I don't want to hear about you ranting about how angry you are that there's a black woman in Star Wars. No one's going to care. Everyone's going to be over it. We're all going to be anti woke. Yeah. And it's going to be great.
So, yeah, we're going to be like, that sounds like a great solution. That almost sounds too optimistic to be true.
It definitely is. This is definitely going to be like a persistent cultural problem for like decades. Yeah. I mean, it already is. It's just like progressivism versus not. So,
yeah,
we're cooked.
To conserve or to conserve or to progress.
I think really the only solution here, I'm going to go full accelerationist. We need to get so woke that everyone burns out on it so hard that it just collapses and we're all just over it. No one wants to talk. People who were woke are like, I'm tired of being woke.
Overextend so far that like what we're actually after is just becomes normal, and people are like, okay, fine, let's just like go back to. They remade Harry Potter, but all the characters were black. Like, God, that was so much easier.
They were black and trans.
Yeah. Like that was the time when things were less woke.
I feel like honestly, like I feel like we were already there. Like I feel like female Ghostbusters was like peak woke.
Yeah. Also the scene in Endgame where all the women characters had like a moment on screen together. Yeah, they had a girl power moment. That was pretty cool. I mean, it would have been cool if like none of them, if all just like side characters who didn't pass the whatever that test
Excel
is
test,
for.
yeah.
Yeah.
Basically, it would have been cool if it would have been genuine instead of
Yes.
you can
Yeah.
you can actually feel the writers going like, we're gonna have a girl power moment here. Disgusting.
And you can feel some of the ones you can just like imagine there's a group of people who are like, this is going to take people. There's a group of people arguing like this is going to take people out of the feeling of being in the film. This is going to feel like a political ad for 30 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's going to be the whole, and then the producer saying, no, but we can.
Yeah. But it's like, maybe it's good if we take them out of the film. So I guess we need to accelerate wokeness in some kind of way, because I feel like if we had already, because I feel like wokeness is on the decline. But as they say, first is tragedy, then is farce. We need to bring back farcical wokeness and accelerate it into the stratosphere, and then it will come crashing back down to earth.
Sounds like a good plan to me.
Mm-hmm.
One of my this makes me sad, but one of my thoughts is also just like, maybe the answer to all this shit is that there's just meant to be competing arguments on it.
No, I don't accept that. Nothing's meant to be.
Maybe not meant to be, but the only way to be.
No, it's not. Nothing is determined. Everything is not open per se, but nothing is determined.
The only way to have balance is to have competing arguments. Have some dumb people, have some smart people.
And then people go like, oh, that's why Hegel said thesis, antithesis, synthesis. And synthesis is when you meet in the middle. Yeah. And when you do the middle path.
Yeah. So the thesis is what? Like who's the thesis and antithesis in today's society that come together to synthesize the ultimate like moderate? The synthesis is clearly destiny.
No, Destiny's not. No, Lex Friedman is the ultimate moderate.
Oh, you're right. God damn it.
Lex Friedman is
He's
the
so
ultimate.
Boring, but he is the synthesis.
He is end stage liberal culture, but also maybe a Russian asset. It's not really clear. Where he's just like, peace and love. I will try harder to build a bridge between Putin and Joe Biden. And God. What effect on one hand, I used to be broadly sympathetic to Lex. I thought he was like, I'm sure he's a very smart guy IQ wise, but EQ wise, absolute idiot, no political education, couldn't see his hand in front of his face. Now I think he's either a Russian asset or malicious. So now I'm like, fuck Lex Friedman.
Yeah, I think something is just a little off.
Or he's just or he's like just very autistic.
I think he and Elon might be of the same breed.
No, Elon is different. Elon's a piece of shit. Unambiguously, Elon is a piece of shit.
Not in terms of like how bad or negative their impact is, but in terms of how emotionally or just like socially off something is.
Elon, yeah, maybe you're right. Elon is very socially off. Like, you're not hearing any.
Yeah, something's a little weird, but yeah, I don't know. Lex has the like. I mean, here's my question: like, is Elon just a different way of playing out the like Lex like doing 10,000 pull-ups in a day type crap to like? Because I feel like they both get the same. Lex is into that in some weird way too, though.
No, Elon is
like,
some weird.
I just run harder and then I focus more. Like
I just focus harder. No, Elon is definitely different.
Yeah.
I mean, first of all, he's in his own $44 billion echo chamber where he determines the town square, so to speak. So that materially, I mean, is fucking insane. And I can only imagine how absolutely cooked that makes your brain.
I just went to Google Elon Musk and I Googled Elon Busk.
Elon Busk. That'd be a great Joe Biden line. we're gonna build it back better, and we're gonna make America. We're gonna make taxes on the rich, and we're gonna make it so that Elon Musk is gonna become Elon Musk because he's gonna be busking by the time. Yeah, that was terrible, Biden. Whatever.
No.
You know,
You nailed it.
okay, great.
Couldn't
Thank
tell
you.
the
I
difference.
appreciate it.
Could not tell the difference.
I am Joe
I
Biden.
want to find that Elon Musk shirtless photo.
Dude, he looks good. He looks good.
Oh, he looks so like it's unbelievable how unattractive he is. It's just unfathomable.
He looks very ancien regime or something. Probably mispronounced that, but he's like very he like you could see this guy painted in like a British castle somewhere. You know what I mean? Like he's got the weird kind of
Yeah. He was he should have been born in the being fat was like seen.
oh dude, he would look so epic if he was like 300 pounds of lard.
Yeah. He might actually look better if he was even more.
I think he might, yeah. There would be like a sort of stately, we don't describe people as stately anymore. Everyone's either a jacked alpha male or a beta bitch boy. But like the era of like the slightly effeminate, but like kind of stately, larger man has just totally been lost.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Who's a good stately presence on the internet?
Dude, I can't think of any.
Dennis Prager.
No, Dennis Prager. He's too frumpy.
Yeah.
He's too frumpy, and he gets too red when he gets angry. Because you can't be. Prager is very easily triggered, which is weird.
Very easily.
Yeah. And if you're going to be stately, you have to have composure.
Milton Friedman.
Stately. Stately. I don't
even
know
what.
He's
not as. I remembered him as having more gut. Very much does not.
No, I don't think he's all that stately, dude.
Yeah, for some reason I thought he had a big old.
John Maynard Keynes. Keynes is a stately guy.
Yes. Yeah.
Also,
So it's like someone in Harry Potter who's like part of the Ministry of Magic.
Yes, exactly.
But
they're
good.
Stately.
Yeah.
Keynes also like canonically fucked.
Keynes reminds me of what? Barty Crouch. That's state.
Yeah.
Bartimus
I want
Crouch.
to do like a TikTok edit of it's just like that Kim Petras song. It's like them LA boys, they want to fuck, and it's just Keynes over and over again.
Not enough people know about Mr. Maynard Keynes.
People definitely do.
I don't think many people know who Keynes was.
Well, that's unfortunate.
Yeah, I need you to recommend me like explaining like the history of like economic thought. I need to start with like I don't know if these are the main characters or not, but I need to start with the like Smith to Marx to Keynes to whatever the actual progression is. Like I need somebody to.
Yeah. Well, actually, I think I made this recommendation to Nick. There's a book that's literally called like A History of Economic Thought. I'll send you a fucking digital copy, and then you can order it if you want. But maybe you and Nick and I could do a read through. That'd be fun. That'd be good. We could have a book club. Talk about economics. I'm sure I have a PDF or an EPUB somewhere.
And if I could pull Des Tiny and just read the
book on stream.
Well, could do that, but I said I did my audio cut out. I could just read there's a Wikipedia entry called History of Economic Thought that has subtopics going back to ancient economic thought before 500 AD.
Ugh, dude, the thing about reading Wikipedia articles is they're so dry. It's actually more fun to read a book.
Yes, it would sound horrible. There's not even like a dedicated. I guess there's German. I don't know. I'm curious where. Anyways, something I'm curious about. I'm curious about too many things.
I think economic thought is a good and cool thing to be interested in because I'm interested in it. So should everyone else should be as well.
Yeah. Well, that's a good. Probably been recording for. Yeah, we've been recording for like 3 hours off and on.
So fucking. I was like, this is gonna be a short podcast.